Chapter 1019. After leaving the music ceremony, the four people were breathing heavily. But from their excited expressions, it was obvious that tonight would be the start of S.H.J.'s rise to stardom began. At the same time, Long Jie was well aware of how saturated the singing industry was. Due to all sorts of talent shows and singers of all levels, it was too much for the eyes to take in. If you didn't have anything special, it would be extremely difficult to rely on singing to reach the next level. So, Long Jie hired a choreographer from South Korea to make up for the lack of dancers in the country. As a result, after the music ceremony, Long Jie opened up all sorts of resources and finally let out a sigh of relief. After that, the training for the few of them became even stricter. When Tongning was still around, Superstar Media was a professional agency that rescued outdated artists. But now that Tongning was gone, Long Jie decided to turn Superstar Media into a cradle for newcomers and a training ground for various groups. Young and fashionable would become synonymous with Superstar Media. Seeing the results of Long Jie's training, Han Shocha's manager couldn't help but sigh. The people at Superstar Media weren't just for show. Although Long Jie didn't have as many methods as Tongning, she still had her strengths. She knew that Han Shocha was the one who introduced these people to Superstar Media, so she was naturally happy to see them rise. Actually, apart from drawing comics, you could also be a talent scout. Han Shocha sneered as he stood in front of his drawing board. I didn't introduce these people to Superstar Media because I wanted them to become famous. Did you think I'd be so kind? Can't you treat it as a good thing? The manager turned and glared at Han Shocha. No way. To put it bluntly, Han Shocha's manager knew what was bothering him. On the surface, he said that he hated Tongning, but in reality, he just wanted to expose Tongning and see her reaction. He thought she was interesting, but he was stubborn and hadn't learned how to communicate properly. Even if Tongning provoked you, she's just unlucky. But what about Long Jie? If Long Jie trusts you so much, why do you want to hurt her? Do you know why psychopathic murderers kill people? Han Shocha asked as he put down his pen and looked at Long Jie with interest. Why? Because I like her. Long Jie isn't important to me. Why should I care about her feelings? In this world, some people simply did not need logic or reason to do certain things. Some people, deep in their hearts, did not differentiate between good and evil. They would only do what they felt comfortable doing. The manager was completely speechless. She turned around angrily and said, I don't care anymore. Do whatever you want. At this moment, Han Shocha was quite pleased with himself because no one could do anything to him. He could do whatever he wanted. What was the entertainment industry? Wasn't it for eating, drinking, and having fun? This was how Han Shocha understood the industry. He wanted to see Tongning's reaction. Wasn't Tongning a two-faced woman? What was there for him to be obsessed with? Everything he did was to make Tongning look like she was in pain. Meanwhile, in the U.S., Jones's The Resurrected Specimen would soon enter its final phase. It would only take a short 2 to 3 months because the rest of the film was still in post-production. This was all thanks to the strength of Hollywood's special effects team. This wasn't something that Tongning could learn even if she wanted to. In post-production, Jones seemed to be afraid that Tongning wouldn't understand, so he explained things in detail. This was exactly what Tongning had expected. Her previous lessons in the UK were a waste of time. No matter how many films she watched or how much theory she memorized, it wouldn't be as effective as Jones's experience. We haven't known each other for a long time, but the things I can teach you are very practical. Tongning, filming is an art. The hardest part is to develop your own style. This may take you a lifetime to study. From now on, you can only rely on yourself. I know you're also producing a film. I've seen your design drafts with a previous director. I can't wait to see your results. Jones did not comment on Tongning's film because he knew about Xiao Sen's situation. Tongning had learned so much, yet she did not change the main storyline. This meant she wanted to preserve as much of the efforts of her old friends as possible. This was also the reason why Jones was willing to teach Tongning. She was a loyal person. I'm also aware that your husband personally participated in this film, and I have every reason to believe that a film that's the culmination of so many people's efforts won't be too bad. You need to believe in yourself. Tongning sighed. After all, as the father of sci-fi, Jones had already done everything he could and taught her everything he could. Although it hadn't been long, this was fate. Of course, Tongning couldn't take it for granted that this was a school, and Jones was like a teacher, teaching her systematically. On the day of the film's completion, Jones was drunk because he was going to announce his retirement after this film was finished. But Tongning couldn't bear to part with this great old man. I hope I can visit you again in the future. You are my only disciple, so you do have this special privilege. I welcome you at any time. Jones smiled. Tongning, as my disciple, don't disappoint me. I won't, Tongning nodded. I believe in you. That night, Tongning and Jones chatted for a long time. The teacher and disciple were like father and daughter. Jones gave Tongning a lot of advice. Before we part, I will give you a present. I hope you will like it. These were the last words Jones said to Tongning as she drove him home. At the time, Tongning had no idea what Jones meant. It wasn't until a few days later, when many American film and television companies contacted her, that she found out that Jones had recommended her to a number of big names in the industry. To keep Jones' disciple, the biggest film and television company in the U.S. even offered Tongning a very attractive offer. But Tongning rejected them. She knew where her true stage was, plus, she knew that she didn't have the right to do so. They were simply doing this out of respect for her mentor. Is it time to consider returning to China? Late at night in the U.S., Ting asked as he held onto Tongning's hand. You should eventually return to the place that belongs to you. Tongning smiled and shook her head. There's no rush. We will continue to study our techniques in the U.S. until I'm satisfied with the post-production of The Ant Queen. I promised that I would return with a finished product, but I'm only halfway done. Fine, my great director Tang. You're quite a hot topic in the U.S. right now. Are you laughing at me? Tongning leaned into Ting's embrace. I'm complimenting you. Ting laughed. Let's go. Yan Air should be waking up soon. By the way, how's our son? What do you think? Zishi is doing well, but Zichin. Ting didn't need to explain himself, but Tongning already understood. Didn't you say you were going to take Zichin to do a test? Tongning asked. If the child turns out to be a genius, wouldn't we be in luck? Chapter 10:20. It wasn't an exaggeration to say that a pair of extremely smart parents gave birth to a genius son. But, apart from being smart, Zichin was also a little strange. When you return to Beijing, let's take him for a test together. Okay. Tongning nodded. Apart from the industry, the couple's 3 children were also the main focus of their lives. Especially now that their daughter was becoming more and more adorable. It was a huge torture for Ting. As a man, he was known for his bravery, but when he saw his daughter, he couldn't help but want to get closer to her. It seemed from now on he was going to spoil this child to the point of no return. Tongning continued to stay in the U.S. Meanwhile, on Long Jie's side, Ajay was slowly getting on track with more events and activities. But Long Jie wasn't in a rush to put the group on stage. After all, she focused on quality, not quantity. She wanted the exposure to be just right. Plus, she learned from Tongning's usual tactics and decided to do the opposite. In the current industry, didn't the public like to be surprised? At this time, Long Jie was busy giving the group a lot of exposure, so Han Xiuqia paid close attention to her every move. However, he was too patient and often gave Long Jie advice. As a result, Lin Xian and Luo Yinghong gradually let down their guard around him. If there was really something wrong with this man, how could he have waited for so many months without making a move? Han Xiuqia simply became more careful. Over the past few months, he had been meeting with Ma Weiwei nonstop. Ever since she made a fool of herself at her audition, Ma Weiwei had learned from her painful experience and calmed herself down to improve her acting skills. Although, with her current popularity, she didn't need much acting skills. When she thought about the humiliation she received from the American producer, she decided that if she wanted to go far in the industry, she needed to have some acting skills. As the two hooked up, Han Xiuqia made sure Ma Weiwei knew Long Jie's every move. Seeing how much effort Long Jie put into AJ, Ma Weiwei couldn't help but sigh. If I had joined Superstar Media from the start instead of being sent for plastic surgery, my life wouldn't have been so painful. I wouldn't have to compare myself to Tongning and be suppressed by her. Sometimes, I'm a little envious of the newcomers. Unfortunately, you are destined to oppose Tongning, Han Xiucha emphasized. However, Tongning is currently hiding in the U.S. and doesn't dare to show herself. Let's find an opportunity to make our move. I can't wait any longer, Ma Weiwei said. I don't want to be that person's shadow anymore. Just wait and watch the show. Ma Weiwei was extremely curious as to what Han Xiucha was going to do. After all, Long Jie wasn't someone to be trifled with. How could he possibly take Superstar Media away from her? Then I'll wait and see. As Han Xiucha watched Ma Weiwei leave, his body relaxed and he leaned back. The reason why he was so confident was because he knew everything about the members from the start. To be exact, even the newcomers had no idea that Han Xiucha had evidence of them attracting fans. They would be exposed in school, and Han Xiucha introduced them to Long Jie. As soon as the truth was revealed, not only would Long Jie's efforts go to waste, but Superstar Media would also be implicated. This was Han Xiucha's plan. It seemed the newcomers knew that it was easy for Long Jie to train them, so they wanted to quit. But there were some things that once started, there was no turning back. The only reason Long Jie didn't notice was because the members covered for each other. Ever since they were students, they had been acting on their own and were good at hiding themselves. More importantly, Ajay was going to be a guest on a large-scale reality show soon. So if they went overseas to film, it would give them a chance to indulge themselves. Just wait and see. A good show was about to begin. Tongning led her team in the U.S. to overcome technical difficulties and poured 100% of her effort into the Ant Queen. Although the special effects couldn't compare to Hollywood, she was already satisfied. Recognizing the current situation was important for growth. Miss Tang, according to the latest technological adjustments, we can cut the production time in half. The technical staff in charge of post-production said, "Don't let your guard down. Don't do things half-heartedly just to save time. Don't worry, I watched director Chiao Sun draw with my own two eyes. So, I'm looking forward to making this film the best we can. You need to trust me. Our people have learned a lot from the Americans." Tongning was aware that the manager's wife was about to give birth. As a mother that had given birth to 3 children, she understood how helpless it was for a woman to give birth without her husband by her side. So, she smiled and nodded her head at the manager. "If you have the confidence, then move the team back to Beijing. I'm starting to miss home." "Okay, Miss Tang." Originally, they expected to wait another 6 months, but now, they didn't have to wait any longer. That night, Tongning gave Long Jie a phone call to tell her the good news. "I will be returning to Beijing soon. Do you want to come pick me up?" "I'm very busy at the moment." Long Jie pretended to be arrogant. "I heard that you're doing a great job with your new group." Tongning laughed. "Fine. Since you don't have time, I'll have to come look for you myself." "Are you kidding me? How could I ask the disciple of a sci-fi master to come look for me? When are you flying?" "I'll let you know when I've booked it." "Okay, but I will be flying out of town in a couple of days. The newcomers will be filming on location, so I need to keep an eye on them," Long Jie replied. "Managing them isn't easy. I can't make any mistakes." Who was the happiest about Tongning's return? Of course, it was Long Jie and Lin Xian. Tongning actually missed him a lot. It had been a long time since she last saw Chun Xingyan, Hu Jingjing, and the others. "By the way, has the Ant Queen finished production? We've already tackled the most difficult part. We're almost done." Tongning replied. "That's good. Although there have been many twists and turns, you have a new project. Director Tang, I'm waiting for you to explode. Don't let anyone bully you again, and don't ever leave again." Tongning understood what Long Jie was hinting at. She didn't care about Ma Weiwei or anyone else. She didn't need to be lenient with those that needed to be dealt with. Nor did she need to quit just because of the audience's preference. In the past, she either quit because she was pregnant or because she needed to improve. But now, did she need to become even stronger? "Don't worry. Don't you understand me? An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth." However, Long Jie might not be able to wait for Tongning to return. Chapter 1021. While Long Jie was packing her luggage, Lu Che had just returned home. Knowing she was about to go on a business trip, he couldn't help but remind her, when you're out of town, keep your phone connected. If you have any difficulties, remember to let me know. Don't force yourself. I'm just taking a team to shoot on location. How could there be any difficulties? Long Jie smiled as she wrapped her arms around his waist and placed a kiss on his lips. It's only for 2 to 3 days. I'll be back soon. Take good care of our daughter. Before she could leave his lips, Lu Che immediately wrapped his arms around her waist and deepened the kiss. I don't care if you have any difficulties. As long as you're out of my sight, you will always be my concern. Come home soon. Okay. Long Jie nodded. Long Jie nodded as she packed some luggage. As she turned to leave, she reminded Lu Che, if Tongning comes back, let me know as soon as possible. Okay. Lu Che nodded. Long Jie was satisfied. She then left the house with a smile and headed to the set with the 4 members of S. AJ, Long Jie, you're personally leading the team? The cameraman couldn't help but laugh as he saw Long Jie. It seems you really care about the newcomers. I can't help it. The newcomers don't know the rules, and the kids don't know how to speak. I hope Ling Jie can take care of them. Of course, don't worry. Everyone has moments of nervousness when they're newcomers. I will try my best to guide them. Look at them. They're so pleasing to the eye. No wonder the show directly invited them. With a team like this, they will definitely be a hit. Long Jie was pleased to hear this. After all, who didn't like to hear compliments? However, seeing how cautious they were, Long Jie hoped they would learn their lessons soon. As he was a newcomer, a handsome man and a beautiful woman, the other artists knew how to take care of his feelings. During the filming process, they tried their best to take care of his feelings. Of course, the treatment he received couldn't be better than the other artists. As a newcomer, the members of S. A. J. were well aware of this. On the first day of filming, Long Jie kept an eye on them the entire time. If anything went wrong, she would remind them to make adjustments. As for the youngsters, they weren't easy to deal with. They quickly learned how to interact with their seniors. Seeing this, Long Jie relaxed. Filming lasted for 3 days and was constantly changing locations. After Long Jie confirmed that everyone was fine and the production crew were taking care of them, she prepared to return to the hotel to catch up on some sleep. She thought to herself, these brats didn't go through the training for nothing. They really do have some brains for being in this circle. Therefore, she returned to the hotel with a peace of mind. As for the first 2 days of filming, there weren't any problems. On the second night, Long Jie even went to look for a few people and told them about their plans for tomorrow's return trip. Until 1 a.m., Long Jie did not see anyone. But at 2 a.m., there was a knock on Long Jie's door. Long man, something happened. Hearing that something had happened, Long Jie immediately sat up in bed. However, she found the photographer, Ling Jie, standing in the doorway with an unreadable expression. What happened? You'll know when you see it. Ling Jie led Long Jie to the top floor of the hotel. Not long after, they saw a few people guarding the members of S. AJ, who were squatting on the floor. 2 men and 2 women were holding their heads as they squatted on the floor. What's going on? Long Jie was confused. As soon as Ling Jie saw this, she immediately showed Long Jie the things that she found on the members of S. AJ. With one glance, Long Jie was shocked. This incident was discovered by the hotel's cleaners. The 4 of them were hiding in a grocery store on the top floor and were secretly taking drugs. Although I've managed to contain them, this incident will definitely spread by tomorrow. You can decide how to deal with it. We definitely can't continue filming. Otherwise, if word gets out, no one will be able to take responsibility. We can be considered as old acquaintances. I suggest you hand these people over. That way, you can still preserve a bit of superstar media's reputation. After hearing this, Long Jie calmed herself down and replied, this isn't the first time something like this has happened in the industry. If it happened to someone else, their background would be able to handle it. Plus, no one saw it but you. I don't know what to say. I'll leave it up to you. After speaking, Ling Jie turned around and left the top floor. Meanwhile, the members of S. AJ all had their heads lowered. They did not have the courage to look up at Long Jie. When did this start? Long Jie asked. Since they all looked at Long Jie, they didn't know how to respond. Speak, Long Jie yelled. Since university. The members were so scared that their bodies trembled. In fact, they even tried to quibble. We only occasionally. Long Jie sneered as she looked into the distance. Does Han Xiuqia know about this? Apart from the four of us, no one else knows about this. The members were determined not to drag innocent people down with them. But they had no idea that the hotel cleaners only discovered them because of Han Xiuqia's guidance. He doesn't know. Great. After speaking, Long Jie turned around to leave. But one of the women suddenly grabbed onto her skirt. Long Jie, are you going to ignore us? What else can I do? Long Jie asked as she lowered her head. You were discovered by the production crew. What else can I do? We were wrong. We were really wrong. But what was the point? Long Jie broke free from the woman's grip and returned to her room without hesitation. But at this time, she received a video on her phone. The video clearly recorded the perverted actions of the members of S8J on the rooftop. When Long Jie looked at the person who sent the video, she was stunned for a moment before she gave Han Xiuqia a phone call. Why did you send me this video? Long Jie, I think it's time we had a chat. After speaking, Long Jie heard a knock on her room door. When she opened it, she found Han Xiuqia standing outside with a smile and waving the phone in his hand at her. Long Jie's expression changed. No matter how stupid she was, she knew what was happening. So, she let go of Han Xiuqia's hand and allowed him to enter the room. Han Xiuqia glanced at Long Jie before he entered the room and closed the door. Why? Long Jie asked with her back to Han Xiuqia. In fact, she didn't even notice that her hands were trembling. Although I've always been wary of you, after all this time, I've completely trusted you. Han Xiuqia shrugged his shoulders and smiled. It's not that complicated. If I have to find a reason, it's because your relationship with Tongning is too good. Tongning? What does this have to do with Tongning? Long Jie didn't understand. Chapter 1022. It's because Tongning provoked my interest in women. Then, I single-handedly destroyed them. As someone that doesn't like to be taken advantage of, I'm going to return the favor, Han Xiuqia replied. Tongning provoked me, yet she didn't dare to show herself. Instead, she hid in the UK and then fled to the US. If you want to blame someone, blame her. Actually, I don't want you to suffer too much. All you need to do is give me your shares of Superstar Media and give me the position of CEO. After that, I will suppress this matter and S.A.J. will continue with their filming, Han Xiuqia replied. Otherwise, everyone will find out about S.A.J. a scandal tomorrow morning. When that happens, not only will your hard work be implicated, but the entire Superstar Media will also be implicated. I don't have the final say in Superstar Media. I know Lin Xian also has shares of the company, but the main responsibility lies with you, Han Xiuqia said as he looked at Long Jie. I can guarantee that Superstar Media will continue to operate well in my hands. It won't be any worse than it is right now. Do you want to see Superstar Media close down? Long Jie never expected that Han Xiuqia would set such a big trap for her to jump into. But no matter what she did, it was going to be a thankless task. Think about it carefully. Han Xiuqia found a sofa and sat down as he waited for Long Jie to speak. I have all the footage, and it's all very exciting. Most importantly, if they're exposed to the public as their manager, won't people think that you're covering up for them? Long Jie closed her eyes. She felt worse than when she was threatened by Lan Shi. She had never trusted Lan Shi, but she trusted Han Xiuqia. I don't like being threatened, Han Xiuqia shrugged his shoulders again, but I have no choice. What did Tongning do to hurt you? Why do you hate her so much? In that case, you should ask her, Han Xiuqia replied coldly. Long Jie, I don't want to waste my time with you. You need to give me Superstar Media. I will evaluate your shares according to the current market price so that you won't suffer any losses. This is my biggest compromise. Take the money and leave unscathed, or destroy everything. You have 3 seconds to decide. At this point, what choice did Long Jie have? Will you guarantee that you won't do anything to Superstar Media? Long Jie asked. I promise, as long as I am still the boss of Superstar Media, I will make sure everything is the same as before. Of course, he was the person in charge of Superstar Media. Long Jie took a deep breath. She felt that Han Xiuqia was too scheming and that she was too stupid. If she had continued to be on guard, she wouldn't be in this situation. How should I choose? Do I have any other choice? Long Jie asked. I like it. A wise man submits to circumstances. Superstar Media was originally created by Tongning. Now that you've helped her pay off her debt, isn't it a happy ending? Long Jie turned around and looked at Han Xiuqia as she sneered. Although I don't know how Tongning provoked you, she will definitely get Superstar Media back. Then I'll wait and see. Han Xiuqia was prepared for this, so he immediately pulled out a share transfer agreement, and with the help of a lawyer, the matter was dealt with as soon as possible. No one expected that the once popular Superstar Media would suddenly have a new owner overnight. Han Xiuqia kept his promise and guaranteed that S.A.J. would continue to record. It was as if, apart from a new owner, nothing had changed. The people that she had trained, the people that she had poured her heart and soul into, suddenly belonged to someone else. And all of this was because of Tongning. Even so, Long Jie did not reveal to Han Xiuqia that Tongning was about to return. As soon as the people from S.A.J. heard that Long Jie was leaving, they immediately went to her room. As soon as the door closed, they all knelt down in front of her. Long Jie, we didn't do it on purpose. Please forgive us. We had no idea that we had always been Han Xiuqia's pawns. Long Jie placed her clothes in her suitcase and sat on the bed with her back to the people. What's the point of saying all this now? Focus on recording. Long Jie, are you looking down on us? What else do you want me to do? Long Jie asked as she turned around. I've always treated you guys with sincerity and tried my best. I hope you guys can do the best you can. After speaking, Long Jie picked up her luggage, walked past them, and left the hotel. Not too far away, Han Xiuqia leaned against a pillar and looked at her with a handsome smile. I'm sorry, Long Jie, for making you suffer so much. Goodbye. Long Jie did not say a word as she left the hotel. At that moment, she didn't know what she had done wrong, and she couldn't accept it. She couldn't blame anyone for handing over Superstar Media to someone else. Long Jie did not return to Beijing. Instead, she went to another hotel and stayed there by herself. She had no idea what Han Xiuqia was planning to do next. Even if he had other plans, she wasn't in the mood to care. As soon as Han Xiuqia's manager found out that he had actually taken Superstar Media from Long Jie's hands, he immediately yelled, "Jerk! Long Jie didn't do you wrong. You are a complete jerk. From now on, I won't be responsible for your matters anymore. I will tell your brother and ask him to find you a new manager. Do whatever you want. Han Xiuqia, just you wait. Tongning will definitely make sure you die a horrible death. She's too afraid to show her face right now." Han Xiuqia laughed. His manager did not say much. Originally, she was supposed to pick up another artist from the airport, but she happened to stumble upon the Tongning couple returning to Beijing with a low profile on the tarmac. Although she was fully geared up, Tongning's legs were too iconic. With Mo Ting's help, there was no way she would mistake them for someone else. Since Han Xiuqia was so confident, there was no need for her to tell him about this. Since he liked to play around, she was going to let Tongning teach him a lesson and show him how to behave. As soon as Han Xiuqia returned to Beijing, the first thing he did was contact Ma Weiwei. It's done. Are you really planning to give Superstar Media to me? For free? Ma Weiwei was extremely curious. I don't have much money. Of course it's for free. You could do whatever you want with it. It would be best if you turn Superstar Media upside down. Also, make sure everyone knows about it. If news of Ma Weiwei receiving shares of Superstar Media got out, the Beijing media would definitely go crazy. How did Tongning's things end up in the hands of the fake Ma Weiwei? It was obvious that there was going to be a big show. So, Han Xiuqia refused to believe that Tongning wouldn't show herself. After returning to Beijing, the first thing Tongning did was give Long Jie a phone call. But Long Jie's phone was turned off. She had mentioned that she was going overseas for a business trip. From the looks of it, she was currently overseas. Chapter 1023. No one knew that Tong Ning had returned to Beijing. That was why Han Xiuqia and Ma Weiwei were so arrogant. This was why the people in the industry were so fearless. The first thing Tong Ning did after returning to Beijing was to pick up her two sons. The next day, she gave Lin Qian a phone call and decided to meet with Long Jie when she returned. But Lin Qian told her that she couldn't get in touch with Long Jie. Tong Ning immediately gave Lu Che a phone call. Meanwhile, apart from contacting Long Jie, Lu Che also called the members of S.A.J. But, under Han Xiuqia's control, the members did not say anything. They simply said that everything was going smoothly. Lu Che felt something wasn't right, so he personally arrived at Hyatt Regency. "Madam, I still want to see Xiao Man in person. She never turns off her phone for no reason." Tong Ning thought for a moment and nodded her head. "Go ahead. After you left, the industry was filled with rumors about you for a long time. Because of this, Xiao Man suffered a lot. To prove herself, she put in a lot of effort to establish S.A.J. Not to prove how amazing she is, but to prove that Superstar Media will always be there for you." Before Lu Che left, he said, "So, madam, Xiao Man has really given her all for you." "I know." Tong Ning nodded her head. She had always known that Long Jie was loyal to her friends. Back then, even when Lan Shi threatened her, Long Jie never compromised. So what more now? Lu Che's actions were quick, but Han Xiuqia's actions were even quicker. Ma Weiwei quickly became the new boss of Superstar Media because she already held the most shares. Soon, Ma Weiwei arrived at Superstar Media's office with the relevant documents. As soon as Long Jie's secretary saw Ma Weiwei, she greeted her with a smile, even though she knew who she was. "May I ask why Miss Ma is here?" Ma Weiwei threw the documents at the secretary and pushed open the door to Long Jie's former office. "I am the new boss of Superstar Media." The secretary was a little surprised, not understanding what was happening. President Long has already transferred her shares to me. If you don't believe me, take a look for yourself." After speaking, Ma Weiwei walked over to Long Jie's chair and sat down. The secretary immediately opened the envelope. After confirming that Ma Weiwei was telling the truth, she immediately called Lin Qian. "President Lin, something has happened. Can you come to the office?" As soon as Lin Qian heard that Superstar Media was in trouble, she immediately replied, "I'll be there in half an hour. It doesn't matter who you call. Even if Tong Ning were to stand in front of me right now, she would not be the boss of Superstar Media. But I will definitely need to meet with the other bosses at Superstar Media. As for the other artists like Luo Yinghong, give me a call and tell them to come over." The secretary obviously didn't want to admit it. She was angry and couldn't believe it. How did Ma Weiwei become the person in charge of the company out of nowhere? What happened to Long Jie? Why did he transfer the company to Ma Weiwei? Besides, why was it Ma Weiwei? Ma Weiwei deliberately showed off her power at Superstar Media, but she had no idea that Tong Ning had already returned to Beijing. Lin Qian was currently pregnant and Li Jin was on a mission. If it wasn't for Tong Ning, the Li family wouldn't have allowed Lin Qian to come to Superstar Media on her own. So, Lin Qian gave Tong Ning a phone call. "Ning Jie, something has happened at Superstar Media." Tong Ning furrowed her brows and personally drove to the Li family home to pick up Lin Qian. Then, she headed straight for Superstar Media with the bodyguards that Mo Ting had assigned. At this time, Luo Yinghong had already arrived at Superstar Media. As soon as she saw Ma Weiwei sitting in Long Jie's seat, she seemed to have guessed something. "As expected, you have a close relationship with Han Xiuqia." "Han Jie, if you already knew, why didn't you stop it?" Ma Weiwei raised an eyebrow as she looked at Luo Yinghong. "Is it because Long Jie doesn't believe you? Look at you. You're an old woman in your 40s, yet you're still causing trouble. That's already dishonorable. How could a woman have a second spring in her career? If you ignore your son, aren't you being an immoral person? That's why, as the person in charge of Superstar Media, the first thing I'm going to do is announce that I'm going to freeze you." Luo Yinghong looked at Ma Weiwei with ridicule, completely disregarding her. "No matter how immoral I am, I'm still better than a fake. How dare she dream of turning into a phoenix?" You can ban me, but I can also sue you. Go ahead and sue me. After all, I don't care about Superstar Media's reputation. You can sue me however you want. Ma Weiwei shrugged her shoulders. Ma Weiwei shrugged her shoulders. Either way, when the media find out that I am the new boss of Superstar Media, my goal has already been achieved. How explosive would the news be if the company that Tongning built up was replaced by me? Luo Yinghong watched as Ma Weiwei became complacent, especially when she noticed that Ma Weiwei's face resembled Tongning's. The two women were obviously 80% similar, but Luo Yinghong knew that no matter how much Ma Weiwei resembled Tongning, she would never be accepted. Soon, footsteps could be heard outside Superstar Media. Ma Weiwei thought it was the pregnant woman, Lin Qian. Just as she was about to tease her, she saw Tongning in a white suit walking at the front with 4 bodyguards. Tongning, you're back. Luo Yinghong couldn't hide her excitement as soon as she saw Tongning. Sister Hong, I've heard most of your conversation just now. Don't worry, no one will dare to hide you from the public. Ma Weiwei stood up from Long Jie's chair. This was the first time she had seen the real deal. Luo Yinghong nodded her head and moved to the side to give Tongning some space. She didn't want to hinder Tongning's performance. Afterwards, Tongning scanned Ma Weiwei from head to toe and said, "You do have a similar face, but your height is a bit too different. I suggest you get a lat." In front of the real deal, Ma Weiwei felt weak and inferior. After all, Tongning was perfect in every aspect. This was how a confident woman should be. She had the body of a supermodel and the aura of a superstar. But she couldn't even catch up to Tongning's shadow. Ning Jie, Ma Weiwei claims that she will be the new boss of Superstar Media. Long Jie's secretary took the opportunity to hand Tongning a document. Tongning casually opened it and saw that the shares had been transferred. She then placed the document on the table and looked down at Ma Weiwei. "First, tell me where Long Jie is." Ma Weiwei turned her face away and did not say a word. Of course, Tongning wasn't angry. Instead, she said to the bodyguards, "Before this matter is cleared up, make sure Miss Ma stays at Superstar Media. If she's gone, I will hold you responsible." "You're illegally detaining her," Ma Weiwei immediately retorted. But she was immediately scared off by Tongning's piercing gaze. "When you have the ability to leave, you can tell everyone that I'm detaining you. As a fake, you need to be aware that you can be cleaned up at any time." Chapter 1024. Tongning's aura was too strong, so Ma Weiwei didn't even have the courage to look at her. Tongning couldn't be bothered wasting time with Ma Weiwei, so she immediately retreated with Superstar Media. Afterwards, the first thing she wanted to do was find out what happened between Long Jie and Superstar Media. Afterwards, Tongning contacted Lu Che. At this time, Lu Che had just arrived in City Z. To his surprise, he ran into Han Xiucha on set. "Where's Long Man?" Long Jie said she had something urgent to attend to, so she returned to Beijing. "Why didn't she return?" Han Xiucha asked innocently. Lu Che had already heard about Ma Weiwei's incident, so he grabbed on a Han Xiucha's shirt and said, "If Long Man loses a single hair, you and your brother will be turned into ashes." Han Xiucha broke free from Lu Che's grip and sneered, "If you can't even keep an eye on your own woman, what use do you have?" Lu Che couldn't be bothered talking to him. His priority was to find Long Jie. So, based on the information provided by the hotel, he quickly found the hotel that Long Jie was staying at. It was rare for Long Jie to get drunk and lock herself up in her room without a care in the world. Lu Che revealed his identity to the hotel and threatened them that his wife might commit suicide. The hotel couldn't take the responsibility, so they opened the door for Lu Che. Smelling the strong smell of alcohol, Lu Che pulled Long Jie out of bed and placed her in the bathtub. He then turned on the shower to let her sober up. It took Long Jie a while to regain her senses. As soon as she saw Lu Che, she asked, "Why are you here? Your phone was turned off. I couldn't find you." Lu Che said coldly before he pulled her out of the bathtub and wrapped her tightly in a towel. "Did you forget what I told you to do before you left? Since you found your way here, that means you know everything," Long Jie said as she turned and looked at Lu Che. "I was useless. I couldn't protect Superstar Media. If you couldn't protect it, then come back. Who are you letting yourself down by staying here? Luce asked. Are you angry? What do you think? Luce asked. Sometimes, I even wonder if I'm your closest husband. Because no matter what happened to you, the first person you contacted was never me. You'd rather drink until you're dead, drunk, than say half a word to me. Long Jia lowered her head, speechlessly. Don't be in such a rush to educate me. I really don't know what I did wrong. Do you know why Han Shocha targeted Superstar Media? Tongning provoked him, so he took his anger out on me. So, are you going to blame the madam? Luce asked. Madam has returned. She's back? Otherwise, do you think I could find you so easily? Han Shocha gave his shares to Ma Weiwei. Ma Weiwei didn't know the madam was back, so she went straight to Superstar Media to show off her power. However, she was detained by the madam. Right now, everyone is worried about you, Luce said before he took a deep breath and pulled out some clean clothes for Long Jia to change into. Long Jia was as quiet as a little wife the entire time. She knew that Luce was truly angry. Indeed, she did not consider it thoroughly and did not restrain herself. However, at that time, she was sad, so she did not think too much about it. After finding Long Jia, Luce immediately gave Tongning a phone call. Madam, I found her. I'll bring her home right now. Don't blame her too much. She is your wife. You should know her better than anyone else, Tongning reminded. I know what I'm doing, madam. After hearing their conversation, Long Jia felt even worse. She didn't know if she would be able to get Superstar Media back after causing such a huge mess. She felt like she had completely let down Tongning's expectations of her. Luce understood that she was upset, so he no longer blamed her. As he drove, he said, I'm not angry at you because of Superstar Media. I'm only worried about you. I know. 2 hours later, Luce returned to Hyatt Regency with Long Jia. However, because she was suddenly going to see Tongning, Long Jia felt a little timid. Let's go. Luce led Long Jia in a Hyatt Regency. Meanwhile, Tongning was looking through the conditions and contracts that Hai Rui had agreed to let her open Superstar Media. As soon as Long Jia returned home, Tongning looked at her and asked, Why didn't you call me as soon as you got home? Long Jia felt a little guilty, but she didn't like to keep secrets to herself. So, after a few seconds of silence, she replied, It's because Han Shocha said he set up this trap because he hated you. I thought you guys had a deep relationship. I don't even know him. If I told you I've only seen him a few times at school in England, would you believe me? Of course I do, Long Jia replied. I will always believe in you from the bottom of my heart, but you don't have to explain, I know. While waiting for you, I've already done some research on Han Shocha. He was brought up by his brother and lacks maternal love. From his work, it's not hard to tell that he desperately needs love, but he's also extremely arrogant. He doesn't think there's a woman in this world, so there's nothing to be proud of. I probably angered him when I came into contact with him, so I'm not completely innocent. But Superstar Media is now in Ma Weiwei's hands. Hearing this, Tongning waved the contract in her hand and smiled, not necessarily. But the news has already been released. The media will definitely make a big deal out of it. But I'm already back, aren't I? Tongning said to Lin Xian. She then said to everyone, Don't tell me that after a few months away, I'm no longer me. When have I ever been taken advantage of like this? Since Ma Weiwei likes to copy me so much, I'll let her learn as much as she wants. I will give you guys an explanation, especially Han Shocha. Just wait for a good show. For some reason, as they listened to Tongning's words and looked at her, Long Jia and Lin Xian both felt that Tongning had become more confident. I will return Superstar Media to you in one piece. As for S.8J, I will send them directly to the police station. Long Jia, I know you put in a lot of effort into this, but if you don't deal with an artist with a criminal record, they will only drag you down. I won't let you leave a black mark on your record. It's not good for your future development. After hearing this, Long Jia nodded her head in relief. I know what to do. You can deal with it however you want. Go home and get some rest. Luce is worried sick. You need to comfort him. Chapter 1025. That Han Shocha is crazy. Lin Xian said after Long Jie left. After Long Jie left, Lin Xian said to Tongning, "He's so narcissistic, I feel ashamed for him." He had no choice. What could he do when he ran into him? Tongning asked. He sure has a way of turning superstar media upside down while I wasn't around. Reality has proven that I made the right decision to not speak to him. But Long Jie has suffered for being targeted for so long. In that case, what do you plan to do from now on? Long Jie put in so much effort to develop AJ, but look at what happened in the end. For the sake of their own interests, the four of them watched as Long Jie was bullied. In my eyes, they aren't even the most basic of human beings. So, even if I want to deal with Han Xiuqia, I will first deal with him. The entertainment industry has never been lacking in handsome men and beautiful women, nor are there any lack of heartless people. Since Han Xiuqia used this to threaten Long Jie, then I will show him how wrong he was to use this to hurt Long Jie. After giving birth to Yin Er, Tongning's figure returned to normal, and she seemed to be more energetic than before. You're still pregnant, so you don't need to get involved in things like this. If you really feel unwell, Annie Lee will come looking for me. Lin Xian nodded her head. When it came to a dangerous person like Han Xiuqia and the smoke and mirrors, it wasn't good for her to interact too much with them. In that case, be careful and have your bodyguards follow you at all times. Don't make us worry, Lin Xian reminded. What do you think? Tongning laughed. It seems I need to make a trip to City Z. What was she going to do? Of course, she was going to get rid of the four people that were still shameless enough to film the show. They even dared to bully Long Jie. Did they think superstar media had no one to deal with? Han Xiuqia found out from various sources that his and Ma Weiwei's secret had been exposed. But it was only a matter of time. So, he didn't mind if superstar media found out. After all, superstar media no longer belonged to Long Jie and the others. But he had no idea that Tongning had already returned to Beijing. Nor did he expect that Tongning would personally come to City Z. Afterwards, Han Xiuqia gave Ma Weiwei a phone call. But Ma Weiwei was currently locked up in Superstar Media's office, and her phone was out of battery. So, Han Xiuqia decided to return to Beijing after AJ finished filming. After all, he had promised Long Jie that he wouldn't mess around with Superstar Media. However, at this time, Tongning had already personally arrived at the set. He even made an appointment with the producer of the other party. Although the man was shocked by Tongning's appearance, it was Tongning. No matter how many rumors there were, as long as she was Mo Ting's wife, she would always be a deterrent. Above all, she had a strong presence to begin with. Tongning did not let anyone else know. She simply met with the producer and the lead director. As soon as the two men saw Tongning, their eyes almost popped out of their sockets. After all, rumor had it that Tongning was running errands in the U.S. Why would she suddenly appear in City Z? I'm sorry, CEO Wang and Director Feng. I took the liberty of asking you out to meet me because there are some things I want to tell you in advance. Mississippi. Miss Tang, please speak. There's a problem with AJ, that Long Jie previously hired. To minimize your losses, I will compensate you for the breach of contract. But I hope you can kick them out of the show. Miss Tang, I don't quite understand what you mean. Since they were hired by Long Jie and were Superstar Media's artists, why would Tongning make such a request? To be honest, the four of them are drug addicts. Do you want to deal with this matter in the open, or do you want to keep a low profile and let them go? Tongning asked, do you want a good reputation, or do you want to be dragged down by these four? But these four people aren't Superstar Media. After speaking up to this point, Tongning shook her head and explained the situation in detail to the two men. She especially mentioned Han Xiuqia's scheme. Previously, I was overseas, so I couldn't avoid problems like this. Now that I've personally come to the show, I want to show you my sincerity. I hope it's not too late to make amends. After hearing this, the two men broke out in a cold sweat. Although they were already aware of the underhanded schemes in the industry, when they actually encountered one and were almost dragged down with them, it was natural for them to feel a little scared. Since the situation is so complicated, we are more than willing to stay out of it. Plus, the matter that Miss Tang mentioned isn't hard to deal with. We simply need to remove their scenes. After all, they are newcomers, so they don't have a lot of screen time, the director said. Thank you, Tongning. Otherwise, if something really happened, I wouldn't be able to take responsibility. But since we're all in the industry, it's best if we can help each other, Tongning replied with a smile. Since that's the case, Tongning, let us know if you have any requests. We will do our best to satisfy you. Tongning smiled at the two men. It was obvious that she had already thought of what she wanted. Meanwhile, the producer and director of the show understood her intentions. It was obvious she wanted to get revenge for Long Jie. As for Han Xiucha, she hoped the two men wouldn't let him know about her appearance. Some scenes weren't in a rush to begin. Don't worry, you're so thoughtful. I can't think of any reason to reject you. After all, Tongning had indeed helped the show avoid any losses. If these four people were to be exposed and had a criminal record, their show would definitely be affected. So, since Tongning had taken the initiative to take responsibility, why wouldn't the producers cooperate? In that case, I'll thank the two of you in advance. Tongning raised a glass of tea to the two men. It wasn't until Tongning left that the director said to the producer, I finally understand why the rumors online say that Tongning is a vengeful person. Plus, I don't believe that a powerful person like Tongning would give up on herself because of something that happened online. You saw for yourself how Tongning planned everything. I don't believe that she's a has-been. No matter what, we are definitely going to owe her a favor. At least, we can't offend her. Otherwise, we'll die without even knowing how we died. After the two men finished their discussion, they returned to the set. But now, looking at S.A.J., the director felt that these four people were a cancer in society. So, even if Tongning went overboard with them, they only had themselves to blame. After a short pause, the producer glanced at the director and gestured for him to step forward. The director had no choice but to approach the four people and say, The four of you, come with me for a moment. Chapter 10:26. The few of them looked at each other nervously, then followed behind the director. Not far away, in the forest within everyone's line of sight. Director, did we do something wrong? Yes, tell us and we can change. Change? The director sneered before he asked. I don't expect anything like that. I simply want to ask, where's Long Jie? That. The group looked at each other, unsure of how to respond. You didn't show any mercy to Long Jie, the person that raised you up. For the sake of your own benefits, you watched as Long Jie was hurt. Was it fun? The director asked the four of them. I've pretty much understood your difficulties. You guys don't have to record the rest of the show's content. Go back to where you came from. As soon as the group heard this, they were shocked. They quickly explained to the director, Director, have you misunderstood something? Misunderstood? The director laughed. Do I need to explain in detail what you were doing on the top floor of the hotel? The group froze. I'm telling you to leave because I'm leaving you with one last bit of face. The director humphed. Youngsters, it's important to have a bottom line. Even if you took drugs, you might have had a chance to make up for it if you were grateful. But, yet, you guys forgot your morals at the sight of profit. I never imagined that you would betray Long Jie just to stay on the show. I can't believe Long Jie actually protected you heartless bastards. My show has no place for you. Get lost. After speaking, the director turned to leave, but one of the group members grabbed onto his sleeve. Director, we can't leave. If we leave, wouldn't everything we've recorded go to waste? Waste. You guys think too highly of yourselves. For Long Jie's sake, I'll give you an occasional scene, and I'll just edit it out. After speaking, the director freed himself from the group's grip and returned to the set. As a result, the dejected group had no choice but to pack up and leave. Han Xiucha quickly found out about the news. As soon as he saw the group packing their luggage, he immediately asked, What happened? Did you guys get into trouble because I wasn't watching over you? Senior, we don't know why, but the director found out about us. I'm going to go look with the director. After speaking, Han Xiucha turned around to leave, but a member of staff stopped him. Forget it, Senior. If the matter gets blown up, it won't do us any good. Plus, Senior, do you really not know about us? Or are you deliberately using us to hurt Long Jie? They weren't stupid. Now that Long Jie had been forced to leave and their secret had been exposed, they couldn't help but suspect that Han Xiuqia was behind all this. That's right. Why did Long Jie transfer her shares to you? What happened between the two of you? Also, did you deliberately leak the information about us? They were extremely suspicious of Han Xiuqia's sudden appointment as the boss of Superstar Media. At first, you simply said that Long Jie was tired and threw us to you. We thought Long Jie hated us and didn't want to see us. But, according to the director, that wasn't the case. Although Han Xiuqia was a little flustered by the question, he remained calm on the surface. You've all misunderstood. Long Jie was simply tired, that's all. The staff wanted to ask further, but Han Xiuqia stopped them. You will naturally understand this matter in the future. Let me first ask the director why he didn't want you guys. At this moment, the staff no longer trusted Han Xiuqia. But they were like fish on a chopping block, so they could only wait and see how Han Xiuqia dealt with the matter. Meanwhile, Han Xiuqia couldn't understand the director's actions. In the industry, there were plenty of artists that couldn't handle the loneliness. So, he was certain that the director was more knowledgeable than he was. But that was an artist's private life. As long as it didn't affect the show, they would usually turn a blind eye to it. So, why did the director treat them differently at S? J? Could it be that he hadn't given enough benefits? Because of this, Han Xiuqia went to look for the director. Director Feng, can I have a few minutes of your time? Director Feng was in the middle of adjusting his position. As soon as he saw Han Xiuqia, he thought of Tongning's plan and nodded his head. The two took a step back, and Han Xiuqia asked the director politely, I'm not sure how my artists have offended you. You can tell me, and I'll teach them a lesson. The director smiled and whispered in Han Xiuqia's ear, The great artist Han, I'm sure you're aware that they have a bad past, right? Director, you don't need to say anything more. These people can't stay with me. You can take them anywhere you want. The director said firmly. Soon, the production will release an announcement. I hope you're prepared. Director Feng, I'm still busy. I hope we'll have a chance to work together again in the future. After speaking, the director walked away from Han Xiuqia. The director's determination made Han Xiuqia feel like he must have been affected by something. That's why he was so determined. But who was it? It couldn't have been Long Jie. She didn't have the ability. After thinking about it, Han Xiuqia couldn't come up with an answer. So, the production team released an official announcement to cancel S.A.J.'s recording. They claimed that a conflict of principles had occurred, so after some discussion, they decided to blacklist the group. As a result, Han Xiuqia was even more certain that there was someone behind the scenes. Especially when the four men were about to leave. They were stopped by the police in the hotel. Someone reported that the guests in room 2022 and 2023 of the Tianhao Hotel were caught using illegal drugs. The hotel staff confirmed that this was indeed the case. So, please come with me. Han Xiuqia never expected to watch as the four men were taken to the police station for a urine test. As for him and Ma Weiwei, the new bosses of Superstar Media, they had to cooperate with the investigation. Han Xiuqia followed the four men out of the hotel and boarded a police car. At this time, he saw a familiar figure board a black Rolls-Royce. Tongning. That's right, it was Tongning. Tongning. But even though Tongning heard him, she had no intention of looking at him. To her, what did Han Xiuqia mean? A piece of trash like him simply needed to be dealt with. She didn't need to pay attention to him. Of course, after returning to Beijing, there was an even more exciting battle waiting for her. So what was the rush? Chapter 10:27. So, that was why Tongning was back. That's why she did all that. As expected, the ex-boss of Superstar Media wasn't easy to deal with. However, he never expected Tongning to act so decisively. Wasn't it because she had Hai Rue in Beijing? Back when she was in England, it wasn't his territory. How come she wasn't this capable? He had never seen a woman that was better at pretending to be virtuous than Tongning. Afterwards, Han Xiuqia tried to contact Ma Weiwei again, but there was still no response. From the looks of it, it had something to do with Tongning's return. Since that was the case, what was he waiting for? He was going to deal with everything after returning to Beijing. Ma Weiwei had already been locked up in Superstar Media for an entire day and night. Her phone couldn't get through, and she couldn't contact the outside world. Her agency was probably going crazy with anxiety. So, Ma Weiwei tried to negotiate with the bodyguards. Keeping me here isn't a solution. Are you going to wait for my agency to call the police? In reality, Tongning had already instructed the bodyguards. If Ma Weiwei wants to leave, you can let her go. But, Madam, what if she calls the police after she leaves? It's best if she has the energy to call the police right now, Tongning replied. News of S.A.J. This incident had already spread. Although news of Ma Weiwei becoming the new boss of Superstar Media had already been released, the former caused a much stronger reaction than the latter. To be exact, this was a double bomb. Since Ma Weiwei wanted to be the boss of Superstar Media, then they were going to let her be. However, Tongning had instructed the bodyguards not to remind Ma Weiwei if she didn't request to be let go. So, as soon as Ma Weiwei requested to leave, the bodyguards immediately said, "You can leave now." Ma Weiwei looked at the bodyguards in shock. Obviously, she didn't believe that Tongning would let her go so easily. But, in reality, Tongning didn't set up any traps for her. But, as soon as Ma Weiwei stepped out of Superstar Media, she was immediately surrounded by reporters. Ma Weiwei, how did you become a new boss of Superstar Media? Ma Weiwei's AJ has been detained by the police, and something like this happened right after you took over Superstar Media. How are you feeling right now? Ma Weiwei. Ma Weiwei was so scared that her face turned pale. She immediately retreated back into the building. She knew Tongning didn't have good intentions for letting her go so easily. Now that she thought about it, she was right. After taking the elevator back to Superstar Media, Ma Weiwei immediately charged her phone and called Han Xiuqia. What happened? Where are you? Han Xiuqia asked. I've been surrounded by reporters. I can't get out of Superstar Media. Ma Weiwei replied angrily. What have you been doing? I just got my hands on Superstar Media. How did someone from S.J. get arrested? Wait for me to pick you up, Han Xiuqia instructed over the phone. It's best if you don't say anything. Don't go anywhere. Where else could Ma Weiwei go? He could only make a phone call to the agency to reassure them. However, the agency was also quite confused by Ma Weiwei's sudden acquisition of Superstar Media. If the S.A.J. incident hadn't happened, this would have been a great tipping point. What a pity. But now, not only did Ma Weiwei not receive any benefits, she even had to cooperate with the police because of these 4 people. As a result, more news was bound to come out. Just like that, the matter was blown out of proportion. No one knew what had happened to Superstar Media. All they knew was that the group that Long Jie had previously groomed had been arrested by the police for using drugs. Moreover, how did Superstar Media's boss end up being the fake Ma Weiwei? The media was also interested in whether Long Jie would step out to provide an explanation, especially when it came to Superstar Media. Why'd it have to be Ma Weiwei with plastic surgery? Didn't Long Jie know about the relationship between Ma Weiwei and Tongning? The internet was in a mess, mainly because everything had happened too suddenly. That was why the netizens were so dumbfounded. Most importantly, what happened to Tongning? Could it be that not only Tongning, but also the agency that she created had mysteriously disappeared as well? This matter is getting suspicious everywhere. I'm not in a rush to take a side. Let's wait for the truth to be revealed first. I feel like there's going to be another big show. I hope the public won't be disappointed. Can't the entertainment industry be a little more positive? They fight openly and covertly every day and tear each other apart endlessly. The commenter above isn't right to say that. Wouldn't you feel bored without these fights? After looking at the comments, Tongning closed her computer. She had already turned the tables on the situation. Han Xiuqia was now in the light, and she was in the dark. No one knew how Superstar Media operated better than her. Yet, Han Xiuqia actually wanted to steal it from Long Jie's hands? Did he really think that Superstar Media had no one capable? S.A.J. was single-handedly trained by Long Jie. What if the police also try to call Long Jie? Lin Xian asked worriedly as she sat beside Tongning. Don't forget who introduced these four to Long Jie. The relationship between Han Xiuqia and Ma Weiwei alone is enough for the public to come up with a big show. Did you think they would care if Long Jie knew about it or not? I've already asked someone to spread the news. Those two should just wait for trouble to arrive, Tongning said as she sat on the sofa. Tongning sat on the sofa. She had no intention of wasting a single soldier. She was going to wait until the two were done with their act before stepping out to clarify the ownership of Superstar Media. As a result, it didn't take long before rumors of Han Xiuqia and Ma Weiwei began to spread. Have you guys heard? As for the S.A.J. group, they were Han Xiuqia's juniors. Han Xiuqia directly introduced them to Long Jie and set up a trap. After Long Jie had trained them well, he told Long Jie that there was something wrong with them. He then threatened Long Jie that if she didn't give up on Superstar Media, he would reveal this to the public. As for why Ma Weiwei became the new boss, it's obvious that she's in an affair with Han Xiuqia. On the other hand, the reason why Han Xiuqia wanted to deal with Superstar Media was because Ma Weiwei was a fake Tongning. Han Xiuqia and Ma Weiwei must have planned to bully Superstar Media from the start, right? That's right. When a jerk and a cheap woman work together, they are indeed invincible. This was all information that was gathered online, but it was close to the truth. So why? It was because Tongning had released the truth. Sure enough, scumbags are bound to suffer. I heard that when those people went to film a show, they were even caught red-handed. That's why the production team terminated their contracts with them. If that's the case, then the production team must have a strong sense of morality. But does Long Jie know that they're attracting fans? Chapter 1028. This was probably the question that everyone wanted to know the answer to. Did Long Jie also know about this? Yet she still chose to protect them. Buffed. According to the latest news I received, Long Jie reported them. Didn't you guys hear? The police only found out because someone reported them. When I received the news, I immediately told them that Long Jie was the one who reported them. Plus, the production team also revealed to the reporters that Long Jie only found out about the incident afterwards, so she ignored them. How sad and disappointing. If that's the case, it does make sense. This was the reason why Tongning reported them at the hotel. She wanted to clear Long Jie's name and create the conditions for her to do so. As a result, whether it was S.A.J. or Superstar Media, it was all Ma Weiwei and Han Xiuqia's fault. Not only was Long Jie innocent, but she was also the biggest victim. Although no one came out to admit that this was the cause and effect of the incident, both inside and outside of the industry, the more they made it up, the more believable it was. Meanwhile, Han Xiuqia's brother and Ma Weiwei's agency quickly stepped out to clarify. They claimed that the two weren't familiar with each other, so it was impossible for them to be having an affair. So, they warned the public not to make wild guesses. As for Han Xiuqia and Ma Weiwei, they were currently at the police station because they were currently being investigated. The four of them have already confessed that they've been covering up for each other and doing shady things since university. So, Mr. Han, did you know about this beforehand? The police officer asked Han Xiuqia with a complicated expression. Although they've simply been sent to rehab, they can no longer be public figures. Since you and Miss Ma are in charge of this agency, you should give the public an explanation. This group was single-handedly created by Long Man. She also knows about this matter. Han Xiuqia said without a hint of embarrassment. She single-handedly created these artists. Does that mean I can sue her and ask for compensation? Mr. Han, it's important to have a conscience. The police officer sneered as he looked at Han Xiuqia. The police officer looked at Han Xiuqia and sneered. As the person in charge, Miss Long has a bottom line and principles. After all, Miss Long was the one who made the call to report the incident, and she's already recorded her statement at the police station. So, we are well aware of the entire situation. Don't you think it's too shameless of you to bite back like this? Under the scrutiny of the police, Han Xiuqia pulled Ma Weiwei to her feet. Let's go. But what should we do now? Ma Weiwei panicked. Tongning has set up such a big trap for us as soon as she's returned. How are we supposed to fight back? Let's leave this place first. Han Xiucha calmly comforted Ma Weiwei. I drag you into this mess, so I will handle it. Go home and wait for my news. Han Xiucha, it wasn't easy for me to get to where I am today. I don't want to lose everything, Ma Weiwei said seriously as she looked at Han Xiucha. I know. Han Xiucha nodded his head and reminded Ma Weiwei to leave through the back door. He would deal with the reporters at the front door. Seeing that the police station was filled with reporters, Han Xiucha walked out without a trace of fear. I'm sorry, everyone. The rumors online are not true. Plus, I'm not familiar with Ma Weiwei. As for the incident with S.A.J., I've only just found out about it, so I'm sorry that I didn't set a good example for everyone. If you're not familiar with Ma Weiwei, why did you give her shares in Hai Rui? Exactly. Answer me. Because I wanted to use Ma Weiwei and Tongning's relationship to gain exposure for superstar media. Although my method wasn't right, my relationship with Ma Weiwei isn't as bad as everyone thinks. If you don't believe me, you can investigate it yourself. Ma Weiwei has nothing to do with this matter. I hope everyone will stop clinging to her. As for the things that are circulating on the internet, have you ever thought about why? The entertainment industry isn't a place where you can simply find out what you want to know. Let me tell you, it's all because Tongning has returned. As soon as everyone heard this, they were stunned. Tongning had returned. But what did this have to do with Tongning? Think about the relationship between her and Ma Weiwei, and you'll know that I'm not just spouting nonsense. So, did Han Xiucha mean that Tongning was deliberately manipulating the rumors? That can't be. We haven't seen Tongning in a long time. She can't be back just because you say she's back. The reporters chased after Han Xiucha. Just wait and see. Tongning is going to make Ma Weiwei suffer even more because Ma Weiwei had plastic surgery. I've never seen a woman as evil as Tongning. After saying this, Han Xiucha strode off. Plus, because of Han Xiucha's explanation, the entire incident became a Luoxing incident. After all, whether it was Long Jie or Tongning, these were all rumors that no one had ever confirmed. But at least Han Xiucha gave the media an explanation. This Han Xiucha sure knows how to lie through his teeth. He sure has a strong mentality. Lin Xian laughed after watching Han Xiucha's interview. After watching Han Xiucha's interview, Lin Xian let out a laugh and said, "It turns out a manhwa artist knows how to redirect the blame. He's indeed smart." Tongning replied as she looked at Lin Xian. What should we do now? If I try to steal superstar media from him, I'll be proving that I'm the evil woman he's been talking about. Tongning laughed. He'll even use all sorts of tricks to smear my name. You were his target from the start. He wanted to trick you into appearing and make you angry. Plus, with his warning to the media, if we try to deal with Ma Weiwei again, we'll be walking right into his trap. Right now, we're in an even more passive position. Most importantly, the media are currently trying to confirm whether you've returned to China or not. Han Xiucha will also find a way to force you to admit that you've returned to Beijing. A shameless person is indeed invincible. It wasn't that Tongning hadn't come across people like this in the past, but none of them made her feel as disgusted as the one she was experiencing right now. Han Xiucha stole superstar media, hurt Long Jie, and now he was biting back at her. This Han Xiucha was indeed someone that made people want to win. As a result, when President Mo offered to help, Tongning completely rejected him. I promise you that I will defeat this piece of trash without ever seeing him again. Otherwise, how am I supposed to survive in the industry? Chapter 1029. Mo Ting did not say a word. It was a silent agreement that he wouldn't get involved. Tongning cared about his feelings more than anyone else, so she promised not to see Han Xiucha. Not only did she look down on him, she also didn't want Mo Ting to feel the slightest bit unhappy. Even for Mo Ting, Han Xiucha wasn't a worthy opponent. Afterwards, Tongning instructed Long Jie secretly invite Ma Weiwei's manager out for a cup of tea. I'm sure we'll be able to get some information. Since Han Xiucha gave superstar media to Ma Weiwei, there's no way they wouldn't meet in private. But Ma Weiwei's manager might not necessarily listen to us. Follow my instructions and have a chat outside, Tang Ning said confidently. In the industry, it was hard not to be tactful with a conversation. Long Jie was well aware of this. I understand. Out of everything that happened between Han Xiuqia and Ma Weiwei, the person most likely to be in trouble was Ma Weiwei's manager. This was the reason why Tang Ning asked Long Jie to contact her as soon as possible. Meanwhile, the media were all guessing whether Tang Ning had returned to Beijing or not. They wondered if Han Xiuqia was right and Tang Ning had planned everything behind the scenes. At the same time, Long Jie managed to find out the contact details of Ma Weiwei's manager through a small channel. In fact, she carefully contacted her manager. What did it mean to be contacted by Long Jie? On the surface, Ma Weiwei's manager appeared like a naive person, but she was well aware of Long Jie's relationship with Tang Ning and Hai Rui. Although she didn't know what Long Jie wanted to do, she was just a manager. How could she go up against the big bosses of the industry? So, she hid it from Ma Weiwei and went to a meeting on her own to meet up with Long Jie. The two met up at the convenience store that Ma Weiwei often ate at. At this time, Long Jie was completely disguised, so no one could see through her disguise. Even Ma Weiwei's manager took a while to recognize her. Long Jie, the public is currently in such an ugly situation. Isn't it a bit inappropriate for us to meet up? There's nothing inappropriate about it, Long Jie laughed. Have you met Han Xiuqia and Ma Weiwei? Ma Weiwei's manager obviously didn't expect Long Jie to get straight to the point without any pleasantries. So, she also fell silent and did not say a word. But in this aspect, Long Jie was very sharp. You should know very well in your heart that Ma Weiwei's path will not go very far to begin with. It is only a matter of time before she is replaced. Plus, the only reason why Hai Rui hasn't made a move yet is because Tang Ning wants to personally deal with Ma Weiwei. In fact, she has no intention of letting her live. If you're smart, you should know how to weigh the pros and cons. The entertainment industry is a realistic industry. I'm sure you know what's best for us. Ma Weiwei's manager understood what Long Jie was trying to say. I know, if I ask you to tell me everything, I would be betraying you. It's not fair. So, you don't need to provide me with evidence or anything else. All you need to do is tell me when they met, and we will arrange a perfect coincidence. Long Jie tried to tempt Ma Weiwei's manager. You know the truth. Han Xiuqia dragged you down with him. Now that things have gotten so ugly, I'm sure you want things to end a better way, don't you? To be honest, I'm in a difficult position. Ma Weiwei's manager put away her innocent expression and lit a cigarette in front of Long Jie. These days, pretending to be smart in front of an artist will only get you bullied. It's quite tiring. When it comes to superstar media, I was happy to see it happen. After all, we are on opposing sides, so I didn't think there was anything wrong with it. However, what you said makes some sense. After all, Ma Weiwei's manager had a deep fear of Tang Ning. As long as you don't betray Weiwei, I can provide you with evidence. But you can only do it once, Ma Weiwei's manager requested. Whether you find it or not, you can only do it once. Long Jie looked at Ma Weiwei's manager and nodded her head. Also, even if you find evidence, you can't do anything to Weiwei. You need to promise me this. As long as Ma Weiwei doesn't do anything too extreme, everything she's done since her debut is enough for Hai Rui to blacklist her 100 times over. But isn't she still doing fine? Long Jie warned. Ma Weiwei's manager looked deeply into Long Jie's eyes. We need to forget about today's meeting. Long Jie wasn't going to give Ma Weiwei's manager any benefits, but she understood that if she owed Long Jie a favor, it would be easier for her to get anything she wanted from now on. It wasn't anyone else. It was Long Jie who owed her. Even if Ma Weiwei ended up being destroyed, Ma Weiwei would still be able to protect herself. This was equivalent to a golden token of immunity. Afterwards, Long Jie used the keywords that Ma Weiwei's manager provided and contacted people that lived nearby to see if they had a chance of capturing a video of the meeting. Normally, residents wouldn't have such a thing, but small businesses weren't necessarily the same. Although it took a bit of time, it was at least fruitful. Was Han Xiuqia trying his best to deny that he had anything to do with Ma Weiwei? It didn't matter. After all, there was bound to be evidence to slap him in the face. As for the second piece of evidence, it was herself. When Han Xiuqia first introduced a few members of S.A.J. to her, he already knew that they had a criminal record and used it to threaten her. This was something that Han Xiuqia could never erase. As long as something was done in the past, it would definitely leave a mark. Even if Long Jie went out and started a fight, she would still be able to stand her ground. But Han Xiuqia's biggest weakness was his mental illness. Because he lacked a mother's care, he developed a twisted and perverted view of women. Although Tongning didn't want to use such despicable methods to attack him, she knew that he needed to be a human in order to be respected. Didn't Han Xiuqia want the media to know that she had returned to China? Since this was the truth, she was going to let him take advantage of it. The most important thing about Tongning was that if something had happened, then it had happened. She would never try to cover it up or deny it. Every plan she made had to be based on the truth. That way, it would be able to withstand the scrutiny of others. Otherwise, in the heavily monitored entertainment industry, someone was bound to find out about something that no one knew about. When that happened, wouldn't it hurt even more to be slapped in the face? At this time, Mo Ting said to Tongning, "You weren't on your phone during the day, so Jones contacted me. He's planning to take his wife to Beijing for a vacation. As his disciple, you should spend some time with him. As your first stop after retirement, you can't let Jones feel like he made the wrong choice." After hearing this, Tongning looked at Mo Ting in seriousness. "President Mo, why do I feel like you were the one that contacted Jones?" Chapter 10:30. But I don't want the old man to get involved in the messy things that are happening in the industry. And Mo Ting smiled and raised his hands in surrender. "I swear, Jones was the one who asked. I didn't contact him." Tongning continued to look at him and smiled. "Since that's the case, make sure you make the necessary arrangements. Make sure the old man can enjoy himself and temporarily suppress Han Xiuqia's matter. I don't want him to think that I'm doing badly in Beijing." "So, you also know that you're doing badly?" Mo Ting wrapped his arm around Tongning and let out a deep sigh as he leaned against her shoulder. "You don't want me to get involved, but everyone in the family is worried about you. Yenair knows how to do that too? Mother and daughter are connected. What do you think?" Tongning couldn't help but laugh. "That's enough. This isn't a big deal. If I really can't handle it, I will definitely cry and beg you to help me." Tongning had never expected that Jones would come to Beijing. She didn't want Jones and her and Xiao Sin's film to be shrouded in dirty rumors. So, she tried her best to avoid Han Xiuqia. At least, it wouldn't be too late to make a move after Jones left. Because of this, she arranged Jones's itinerary and ensured that he wouldn't be disturbed by the media. She hoped to leave a good impression on Jones. At least, she hoped that her country would be great and not terrible. The next day, Tongning told Long Jie that Jones would be coming to Beijing. Long Jie didn't mind at all. In fact, she appeared extremely infatuated. After all, he was going to meet the father of sci-fi. Oh God, an opportunity like this didn't come by every day. Especially since Jones had already retired, it was even more unlikely that she would ever get to see this great man again. "I'll leave the matter of dealing with Han Xiuqia to you. For the next few days, don't worry." Long Jie made an okay gesture. The entertainment industry was a blur, but it wasn't a problem for her to buy some time. Because of this, Long Jie and Mo Ting personally went to the airport to welcome Jones and his wife. It had only been a short time since they last saw each other, but Jones still looked as energetic as ever. Meanwhile, his wife was extremely elegant and treated Tongning like she was her own daughter. "Jones has always told me that he has a smart student. I've finally met her today." Tongning was extremely obedient in front of Mrs. Jones. Soon, the four of them arrived at a hotel in Beijing for lunch. However, during lunch, Jones put down his knife and fork and said to Tongning, "I heard from Ting that you ran into some trouble after returning to China. Is that true?" Tongning was stunned as she glared at Mo Ting. He then explained to Jones, "She doesn't want my help. She's extremely stubborn." This is how it is in this ostentatious circle. There will always be people who will do anything to pursue benefits. I understand you, my little disciple. You are not a vicious person. You have always been defending yourself. But this time I want to stand on Ting's side. You are one of the few people in the industry that can make use of resources. Since that's the case, why not make use of it? Do you remember? When I was in America, I left you a gift, but you didn't accept it. If it was someone else, they would have already entered the American directing circle. But you didn't. You returned to your country, and you wanted to fulfill your original dream. Child, you are still too kind. Since I've accepted you as my disciple, that means you can brag to the world about who my teacher is. Don't tell me you can't show off to someone like me. Did you think I would mind if you did this? I'm looking forward to you doing this because it will help you gain a lot of protection. We're not doing this for vanity. We're doing this so that we can focus more on creating films instead of dealing with petty and despicable people. You need to remember, our time is very precious. After hearing this, Tongning was deeply moved. Every industry has its own rules. You're simply using the rules to protect yourself. What's wrong with that? Tongning did not say a word, but Ting laughed. Jones, this is what makes you so charming. She insists on being herself. But if you do this, your family and friends that love you won't be able to share your worries. When your loved ones aren't needed, they won't receive your acknowledgement. So, we actually need to be needed by you. As he said this, Jones took the opportunity to look at Ting. After all, he was saying it for the two of them to hear. So, let the Beijing reporters do what they want. I can give him a smile, it's no problem. After all, Jones was used to being in front of the camera, so he was very easygoing and natural. As for his wife, she looked at him with admiration. Indeed, Jones truly understood a person's life. Xiaoning, Mrs. Jones said in Chinese. Mrs. Jones said in Chinese, listen to Jones, he's right. If you guys are already attacking me like this, what reason do I have to reject? I can reject kindness and I can reject help, but I can't reject love. A heartwarming lunch ended with their conversation. Then, when they left the hotel, it was a lot more normal than before. There were fewer bodyguards. The reporters smelled the scent of gossip, so they quickly caught up to them. However, the scene that was spread out was a little strange, as Ting returned to Hairue. Soon after, Tongning was left to accompany the Jones couple. Tongning is indeed back in China, but she's with a foreigner. Did Tongning cheat on him? Tongning can't possibly cheat on him. She's doing it so openly. How does it look like she's cheating? Tongning has indeed returned. Does that mean Han Xiuqiu was telling the truth? Did Tongning plan everything behind the scenes? Tongning has appeared at the Beijing Museum of Film again. Hurry and follow her. All of a sudden, the reporters went crazy as they swarmed towards Tongning with the intention of trapping her. No matter what, Tongning was going to give them an explanation. What had happened to superstar media and whether she had framed Han Xiuqiu and Ma Weiwei. At this time, Han Xiuqiu also heard about Tongning's appearance. He originally thought that Tongning would go to the U.S. to lie low to prove that she hadn't returned. But she actually appeared in front of him. Didn't she know that he was forcing her to show herself? Long Jie knew that Tongning was meeting with Jones, so she wasn't worried at all. She simply never expected the incident to blow up. After all, Tongning was meeting with the father of sci-fi, a foreigner who cheated on him and seduced a rich businessman. After they realized who she was, wouldn't they pass out from shock? The trash, Han Xiuqiu, was probably waiting to diss Tongning. Chapter 1031. Tongning had returned to China. Was she about to create a new joke, just like the farce she caused in the UK and the errand she caused in the US? How many people in the industry were waiting to ridicule her? Although she was married to the big boss of the entertainment industry, it didn't mean that she was respected like Ting. After experiencing so much and going through so many hardships, Tongning was already a has-been in the eyes of the media. But she refused to admit that she was a has-been. Instead, she continued to struggle and receive disdain from others before she would accept her old age. Look, Superstar media was about to be destroyed by her. Wasn't this Tongning's success and Tongning's failure? Most importantly, she used to pretend to be strong, but now she had to kneel down and lick the US's boots. Didn't she look down on Hollywood? And now, she was forced to serve a wealthy businessman. Once a person falls, they're slapping themselves in the face. Look at Tongning. She's doing everything she can to regain her popularity. But how is that possible? There are new artists debuting every day, and they're all young, beautiful, and cooperative. Who would care about a has-been like her? If you don't care, why did you take photos of her as soon as possible? She can only rely on scandals like this to attract attention. She's so shameless. She's President Mo's wife, yet she doesn't know how to behave. All in all, Tongning's every move, every word, or rather, every time someone mentioned Tongning, the media's reaction was extremely intense. Even though they said that she was a has-been, as soon as they heard news of Tongning, they immediately rushed over. Did they say that Tongning was a slap in the face? Wasn't she being too funny? All in all, because someone had leaked the news, the outside of the Beijing Film Museum was already surrounded by the media. All they wanted was to get their hands on information about Tongning as soon as possible. At this moment, Han Xiuqia was browsing through his messages at home. Although he wanted to show himself and see what Tongning was up to, his relationship with Tongning was too sensitive. If he showed himself, it would be too obvious. If Tongning wanted to bite back at him, it would be too easy for her to do so. Ma Weiwei was the same. She stayed at home and watched TV, even though her manager looked at her with a complicated expression. Weiwei, it's almost time to go. We need to catch up on our next job. Do you think Tongning has fallen so far? The manager froze for a moment before replying. Times have changed. If we really put you and Tongning together, the company would definitely choose you and not Tongning. Ma Weiwei seemed to be pleased by her manager's words as she stood up excitedly. Although I really want to watch a good show, I have no choice. Who told me to work? Ever since Han Xiuqia revealed to the media that Tongning was trying to frame me, he really helped me a lot. At least, Tongning doesn't dare to make a move on me in the open anymore. Han Xiuqia was indeed smart. Unfortunately, he didn't use it on the right path. Luckily, he didn't use it against us. The agent replied again. Tongning won't be a match for me very soon. Just wait and see. This time, Ma Weiwei's manager did not say a word. If Tongning was really like what she appeared to be, she wouldn't be the same Tongning that had debuted 7 to 8 years ago, yet still managed to make a comeback. Ma Weiwei had underestimated Tongning. However, she did not warn Ma Weiwei. As the person who sold Ma Weiwei out, she had no choice but to keep a low profile. Inside the museum, Tongning and the others were already aware of the situation outside. But their mood was not disturbed. Especially Jones, who continued to learn about the history of film in Beijing and some interesting stories from the history of the film industry. It took around an hour to explore the entire museum. During this time, Tongning acted like a tour guide as she explained the boring history of the film industry to Jones. Okay, this trip to the museum has come to a successful end. You were very interesting and detailed. I'm very satisfied. Tongning glanced at the exit of the museum and then looked at Jones. She asked helplessly, "Sir, are you sure? Let's go." Jones was very open-minded as he led the way towards the exit. As soon as the reporters saw them, they immediately swarmed towards them. However, they were quickly stopped by Tongning's bodyguards. However, Jones did not show any displeasure as he turned to look at Tongning. Tongning, come out and accept an interview. Tongning, rumor has it that you've hooked up with an American tycoon. Tongning, come out and explain the incident with Superstar Media. The reporters handed over their microphones and forced Tongning and Jones a few steps back. But Jones did not get angry as he continued to look at Tongning. Seeing this, Tongning stepped forward and stood in front of Jones. There's nothing to interview. This is a private trip. Please make way. The reporters thought that Tongning would respond. After all, the media had seen her kneeling down to an American tycoon. Wasn't Tongning afraid that her public image would be slapped in the face? You once expressed your disdain towards Hollywood in public, yet you're now befriending an American tycoon. Don't you think there's something wrong with that? Did President Mo allow you to do this? Tongning, you're such a hypocrite. At this moment, the reporters had no idea who the man standing beside Tongning was. As a result, their attacks on Tongning were extremely fierce. As a result, even though Tongning and the others had bodyguard protecting them, it was still difficult for them to walk out of the museum. Everything that the media has said today is a fabrication that I've never admitted to. Plus, you've never tried to find the truth. Most importantly, it's not appropriate for me to answer your questions at a time like this. I hope you all know your limits. Tongning, does the tycoon's feet smell good? Tongning, this American doesn't look like anything special. Your taste is terrible. Tongning looked at the clueless reporters and closed her eyes. She then replied, I hope in the future you will not regret your actions today. Ha, you're already a rat in Beijing, yet you're threatening us not to regret it. This isn't the U.S. That's right. Many of the reporters follow the trend, but not all of them were ignorant. At least, one of the male reporters was a fan of sci-fi. The more he looked at Jones, the more familiar he became. In the end, he pulled out his phone and did a search. Then his expression changed. Chapter 1032. Hey, stop talking nonsense. The first thing he did after putting down his phone was grab the person next to him. This is the father of sci-fi, Jones. What? Someone looked at the man's phone and saw Jones' profile. They were stunned. Oh God, what are we doing? Like this, a small group of reporters had already discovered Jones' identity. Only the people standing at the front were left shouting arrogantly. At this time, Jones gestured for Tongning to stand behind him as he stepped forward and said to the reporters in English, in the entire world, I have never been humiliated like today. The Beijing media has truly opened my eyes. Hey, foreigner, go back to the U.S. This is Beijing. This is not your territory. Exactly, who do you think you are? Tongning, you're such a coward. How could you stand behind a foreigner? Aren't you embarrassed? Tongning sneered without saying a word. She simply said to Jones, Sir, it's too chaotic here. Let's go back to the hotel. Okay. With the protection of the bodyguards, the Jones couple and Tongning successfully escaped. However, after the trio boarded their car, a few crazy reporters still wanted to chase after them. But they were confused by the other people's reactions, so they stopped in their tracks. What are you guys thinking? Why aren't you chasing after them? Have a look for yourself. One of the reporters handed his phone to the arrogant reporter. After taking the phone, the reporter was still confused. What do you guys mean? What I mean is, the American you're cursing at is the famous father of sci-fi, Jones. He is loved by the entire world and his fans are crazy. Yet you guys scolded Jones in such a way. Just you wait to appear in the American newspapers. You're going to be famous. After hearing this, the female reporter was completely dumbfounded. No. Everyone said, that's why Tongning said you guys don't know the truth. You're simply making assumptions about someone else and throwing accusations at them. There's going to be a good show to watch. If at the beginning, the reporters were just there to watch a good show, then Jones' appearance sent the entire Beijing into a frenzy. Have you guys heard? Jones is in Beijing, the American that Tongning is meeting with. Jones! Oh God, I've seen so many of his movies. I'm so fascinated by them. So, it turns out that Tongning was entertaining Jones, yet so many reporters went over to diss her. Beijing's reputation has been completely destroyed. Fuck these stupid reporters. They're everywhere. If my idol has a bad impression of Beijing, I'm going to make them go out of business. All of a sudden, everyone was excited by Jones's arrival. At the same time, they were envious and jealous that Tongning and Jones had such a good relationship. Meanwhile, Jones's fans made multiple phone calls to Hai Rue, telling Tongning to take good care of their male idol. The ones that suffered the most were the media that tried to stop Tongning from spreading rumors. As soon as the matter was revealed, they immediately became a laughingstock. No, if they were to actually appear on American social media, they would completely embarrass Beijing. You people are too lowly. While you were complaining that Tongning was outdated and slandering her for framing Ma Weiwei, she was busy hosting the father of sci-fi, Jones. Is this a joke in England? Was he doing odd jobs in America? It's obvious that he's reached a new height, okay? It's been so long, but Tongning still loves to slap people's faces. In fact, he's getting more and more arrogant. I feel like Tongning is about to make a big move. Those that never doubted Tongning, please give me a like. Did Han Xiuqi's slandering of Tongning still matter? Not anymore. Anyone with a discerning eye could tell that Tongning and Ma Weiwei were from two different worlds. Although Tongning had been misunderstood for a long time, she kept a low profile because she didn't want to refute the rumors. But was there any point in refuting them? Was it because of the Beijing media? What a joke. So, superstar media's incident didn't matter at all. It didn't matter who framed Han Xiuqi and Ma Weiwei. After all, the most important thing was that Jones was in Beijing and he was scolded by the media as soon as he arrived. As a result, netizens urged Tongning to explain herself to Jones and not let him down. Jones has been a thrifty person his entire life and has always been focused on producing good films. Since Tongning has such a close relationship with Jones, no matter what the public says, I won't believe it. +1 + 10086. So, Han Xiuqi and Ma Weiwei, can they please step aside? If anyone dares to stir up trouble at a time like this, it's obvious who's up to no good. Han Xiuqi never imagined that Tongning would have such a trick up her sleeve. Jones. She actually knew Jones. She sure had a lot of tricks up her sleeves. Because of Tongning's actions, everything he had done in the past had gone to waste. He had always thought that Tongning wouldn't be able to make a comeback, but who would have thought that the problem he had given her would be solved so easily? More importantly, he definitely didn't know that there was even more shocking news to come. For example, that Tongning was Jones' apprentice, or that Tongning had evidence of his meeting with Ma Weiwei. There was still a lot of drama waiting for him, so he didn't need to rush. Soon, the group returned to the hotel. Faced with the sudden reversal of the situation, Tongning couldn't help but say to Jones, "Your appearance was a huge help to me. I'm really thankful." Jones revealed a loving smile as he looked at Tongning. "You are one of the rare children that I acknowledge. Because of you, I can feel that there are still people in this industry with flesh and blood that want to live a different and exciting life. Most importantly, I've seen in you the passion and persistence that not many people have for film. People like that are becoming fewer and fewer. As your mentor, if I can still help you when I retire, my life will be considered complete. So, you don't need to thank me. I'm still waiting for your film to be released. Don't disappoint me and embarrass me. I'm relying on you for the rest of my life." Tongning nodded her head and smiled. "Mentor, you're being too serious. I will definitely do my best." She knew that she was lucky this time. She had met a good person like Jones, so she never wanted to use their relationship. Everything that had happened was already enough. She had no intention of revealing that she was Jones' apprentice. However, sometimes things didn't go according to plan. Chapter 1033. But what did Tongning and Jones have to do with each other? Could it be that this was the method she chose to use to make a comeback? Was she using Jones to create hype? A lot of people expressed their doubts and even asked questions. But this time, Mo Ting personally released a statement. After all, although Tongning was no longer an artist of Hai Rui, she was still an artist under his management. As Tongning's lifelong manager, Mo Ting naturally had a responsibility. In the past, Tongning was the one that refused to let Mo Ting interfere. But this time, Tongning had learned from Jones that mutual need was important to a married couple. So, she no longer cared about small things. Afterwards, Mo Ting posted a statement on his public social media account. It wasn't exactly a response, but it sounded like a question. "My wife's return to Beijing has caused a huge uproar. Before we've even sorted out the matter with superstar media, we've already been accused of using Jones to create hype. When can the media be more dignified? My wife accompanied Jones to Beijing to take care of him. It was a completely private trip, so there was no need to explain. But the slanderers are still doing as they please. The funniest thing is they want my wife to explain how she knows Jones. The media have always taken advantage of the fact that they're weak and have the right to force their artists to cooperate and violate their rights. Artists need to be monitored by the public, not slandered by them? Is this the only way for you to survive, by casually making assumptions and riding on the hype? A good environment in the entertainment industry requires reporters to follow the rules. Otherwise, appearing on the headlines in the US and embarrassing yourself will be a part of your plan. I would like to make one final statement. This is my final warning. I welcome the public to monitor me at any time. But if you come across any slandering or rumors again, please wait for a letter from my lawyer. Ting's statement was filled with strong personal feelings. After all, this wasn't an agency anymore, so there was no need to be so rigid. But the most important point was that no matter what Tongning did, the media would always diss her. Sometimes it was without reason. Tongning creating hype? Tongning scheming? Tongning causing someone to die? Over the years, every change in Tongning's life had a lot to do with the media. Most of the time, the media made up stories out of thin air. But when the public thought about it carefully, they understood. And this time, even when he was taking care of his friend and wanted to be a good host, he was slandered for sucking up to the Americans. Wasn't that too much? This time, it was Tongning's fans that had been bullied for a long time. With Ting's words, they suddenly had the courage to step out to protect Tongning. With all due respect, is Han Shocha retarded? Superstar Media originally belonged to Tongning, yet he snatched it from her and accused her of framing him. Don't forget who benefited from this incident. If he didn't use underhanded means, how did he get Superstar Media? As for Jones, this is probably the funniest piece of entertainment news I've ever seen. Just because Jones has a special identity, Tongning actually had to explain how she met him. It's none of your business. We've been Tongning's fans for a long time, so we're used to her being slandered. So we've kept a low profile and simply watch her work. Originally, we planned to stay like this for the rest of our lives. But when she was attacked by the media while she was shopping with her friend, I couldn't tolerate it any longer. Ting's words awakened a portion of the public's rationality and caused a portion of the public to take sides. As a result, there were a lot of people that wanted to go against the reporters. When it came to the media's harsh treatment of their artists, quite a few artists stepped out to ridicule. Previously, when I was having dinner, I ran into a paparazzo that was secretly taking pictures of us. I tried to explain to him that it was just a meal and that he shouldn't take pictures. But the paparazzo pointed to his own head and said that if I didn't let him follow me, he would smash his head open and yell at me for hitting him. If that happened, you would have a scandal. In the end, I gave up. I couldn't afford to offend him, but I could afford to hide. So I ended up eating a bowl of noodles on the side of the road. Aren't reporters supposed to be harsh towards their artists and lenient towards themselves? Most of the onlookers think that celebrities are rich and don't want to see anyone make a move on them. But look at our cutie reporters. They've already turned a normal relationship upside down. If we were to really touch them, we would lose our jobs. There's nothing we can do. The public loves drama, but reporters love drama. If, in my lifetime, I'm able to see the reporter industry being cleaned up, I'm willing to stream myself streaking. We've already taken care of ourselves. What about the reporters? This time, the reporters' incident attracted attention because they had ignorantly slandered Tongning and offended Jones. In the end, news of the incident even reached the U.S. It didn't need to be said how embarrassing it was. All over the U.S. websites, the most arrogant reporters at the time had already resigned and left Beijing. They were too ashamed to face the consequences. After being dealt with in such a way and receiving all sorts of attacks from both inside and outside of the industry, the reporters were under a lot of pressure. In the end, during an interview, the people from Hairue were asked what Ting meant. They all laughed and replied, "What President Mo is trying to say is that it's fine for reporters to stick to their jobs. Interviewing and supervising are their responsibilities. But we need to ask our colleagues to use their brains, but they still need to give us the truth about Superstar Media. That's not something that we're in charge of. As a result, the reporters became a lot more cautious. Meanwhile, Han Shocha's hopes of catching Tongning's attention were dashed in the end. After all, Jones was currently in Beijing. Who would want to pay attention to his insignificant news? Damn it! Han Shocha's brother asked as soon as he heard Han Shocha's cursing, If you try to take down Tongning with your own abilities, you'll only make yourself unhappy. Now that she's involved herself with Jones, it means that she's entered a higher class circle that people like you and I can't come into contact with. If you have the time, you should draw more comics. Perhaps, one day, you'll be able to catch up to her. Shocha, you're my only brother. Don't cause so much trouble and embarrass me. Am I supposed to just sit by and do nothing about her? What else do you think you can do? Create big news with that fake Ma Weiwei? Han Shocha's brother laughed. If she had enough scenes, she might have a chance to step out and join in the fun. Isn't Tongning magnanimous? I don't think she'll say anything. You guys could do your own things, and she can do hers. Although it's disgusting, Ma Weiwei already exists, and there's nothing Tongning could do about it. Plus, Superstar Media is in your hands. It's fine if you suck her blood. Chapter 1034. Ma Weiwei's agency seemed to understand what was going on, so they immediately released news that Ma Weiwei was about to star in a big film. In fact, they shamelessly jumped on the popularity of Tongning and Jones by claiming that their relationship would extend from real life to acting. Acting? How dare the agency mention Ma Weiwei's acting? Who gave Ma Weiwei the confidence? Even though Tongning was surrounded by so many topics, her acting skills were obvious to everyone. Meanwhile, Ma Weiwei's audition with the American producer also revealed her shocking acting skills. So, where did she get the confidence to compare herself to Tongning? Of course, Ma Weiwei and her agency weren't stupid. Whether they could be compared or not wasn't the main point. The main point was Ma Weiwei's popularity continued to rise. This was exactly what Han Shocha's brother predicted. Who in the entertainment industry didn't have a few tricks up their sleeves? Anyone with a discerning eye could tell that Ma Weiwei had completely blackmailed Tongning. She copied Tongning's every move. After all, this was the only way to make Ma Weiwei famous. As long as there was popularity, money to be made, and investors were satisfied, then no matter how much the public scolded them, it didn't matter. After all, some people cared about fame, while others only cared about profit. As long as they had money in their pockets, it was easy to clear their names. Tongning's acting is so good, and she's a two-time Best Actress. Yet, she's being placed in the same category as a toy. How disgusting. After all this time, I simply want to say that Ma Weiwei's agency sure has a lot of face. I know this woman is leeching on the popularity, yet I'm so angry that I can't help but contribute to it. I must be possessed. As a result, the netizens realized Tongning's good points. No matter how much trouble she created, at least she had something to show in every field. But this Ma Weiwei, she was obviously ridiculing her, so she didn't care. Yet, Tongning still had to hide from this idiot because she was too shameless. If she continued to slander Tongning, what would she do? Long Jie was also angry at Ma Weiwei's actions. Someone like her was too shameless. There was nothing she could do about it. Worst of all, Superstar Media was still in Ma Weiwei's hands. But she had personally handed over Superstar Media. So, what right did she have to interfere with Tongning's matters? Ever since Superstar Media's incident, Long Jie stayed at home and tried her best to spend time with her daughter because she couldn't face herself. Perhaps, Mother Lu found out from the news that Long Jie was currently at home, so she had been planning to bring Lu Che's son home for a long time. So, while Lu Che was at work, she came knocking on his door. Although Lu Che's attitude was firm at the time, they were still mother and son. So, no matter how bad their relationship was, in Mother Lu's heart, he was still her son. How could there be overnight hatred between mother and son? With that thought in mind, Mama Lu went to the door. As soon as Long Jie saw her mother-in-law, her expression froze. At this time, Mother Lu directly pushed Long Jie aside and entered the house. I've heard about what happened to you. So, after all this time, it was all in vain. Mother Lu looked at her granddaughter without a care in the world. After all, she now had a grandson. She assumed that the surrogate that she found was going to give birth to Lu Che's son. Women should be responsible for supporting their husband and children. Look, after all this effort, you still haven't done anything. May I ask why you're here today, Mrs. Lu? Long Jie asked stiffly. Mother Lu turned around and looked at Long Jie. She didn't want to beat around the bush anymore. She directly said, "Back then, when I asked you to give birth to a son for Lu Che, it was harder than reaching the heavens. But now, you don't need to because Lu Che already has a son. Of course, I don't expect you to accept the child, but as the child's father, Lu Che needs to take responsibility. So, I'm here to tell you that from now on, Lu Che will be spending more time with me and his father. Whether you and your daughter understand or not, if you want to live together, you'll have to endure it." After hearing this, Long Jie was amused. "Why do you always make everyone so tired? I don't have anything else to say to you. Let's call it a day." After speaking, Mother Lu left Long Jie's home without a care in the world for her granddaughter. After all, she thought that she had a grandson. With this thought, Long Jie leaned against the table and laughed for quite some time. She felt both sad and amused. That night, after Lu Che returned home, Long Jie casually explained the situation to Lu Che. Lu Che glanced at her and carried his daughter in his arms. "I will always be your and our daughter's pillar of support. Plus, I'm sure you already know where this child came from. When will this matter be resolved? Only when the occasion is big enough will people remember it. Don't you think so?" Lu Che asked. After following Mo Ting for so long, he had learned to be a lot more cunning. Sometimes, because they were family, he would continuously give in. But when he gave in, all he got in return was more incomprehension and hurt. Since that was the case, why did he have to carry these shackles? Long Jie looked deeply into Lu Che's eyes and trusted him from the bottom of her heart. "Don't worry, I won't take it to heart. I know that you have always been a good husband and father. As for our parents, we have already tried our best. Even if we're criticized by everyone and are labeled as unfilial, I will gladly endure it." "That's good. The madam asked me to tell you that if you are willing, you can return to being her assistant and return to how you were before." Long Jie lowered her head and smiled bitterly. "Of course I'm willing. What else could she do? She had put in so much effort, but in the end, all her hard work had gone to someone else. Be more optimistic. Don't be so bitter. It's not like you anymore." Long Jie nodded her head. However, she suddenly felt nauseous as she ran to the bathroom and threw up. Recently, she hadn't been eating regularly and had drunk a lot of alcohol. Even if her stomach was made of iron, she still couldn't handle it. Lu Che did not think too much of it. He simply called the hospital and arranged for Long Jie to have a checkup the next day. At this time, seeing that Tongning did not respond, Ma Weiwei became even more arrogant. Not only did she ride on Tongning and Joan's popularity with the film, she also went around promoting her charity work and mocking Tongning for not doing charity. At times, Tongning didn't understand why Ma Weiwei created an atmosphere of invincibility for herself. As Jones was still in Beijing, Tongning had no time to deal with Ma Weiwei. She wanted to see how arrogant Ma Weiwei could get. Chapter 1035. After tasting the benefits of being popular, Ma Weiwei temporarily let go of her pride. At least at this moment, she finally understood the value of having plastic surgery to look like Tongning. She also understood why her agency insisted on doing this. Because of Han Xiuqi's preparations, Ma Weiwei was so fearless. After all, if anything happened to her, she could blame it on Tongning. So why wouldn't she do it? Her most recent job was to attend a jewelry brand's endorsement event. Coincidentally, the mall also had a picture of a watch that Tongning had once endorsed. As a result, the accompanying reporters couldn't help but ask her what she thought of her relationship with Tongning. As a result, she purposefully stood in front of Tongning's face and smiled. "I think, if Ning Jie and I have the chance to share a stage together, we will definitely become good sisters. You don't mind sharing a stage with Tongning?" "Why would I mind?" Ma Weiwei shrugged. She then said to the reporters, "Due to a strange combination of factors, superstar media that Ning Jie created is now in my hands. I simply hope that I don't let down superstar media's original intentions. I also want to take this opportunity to tell Ning Jie that I will take good care of superstar media." What did she mean by this? It was like giving birth to a child that was later snatched away by someone else. Yet, the person didn't seem to regret it at all and even boasted that she would take good care of the child. From this, one could imagine exactly how malicious Ma Weiwei was. But regardless of what happened, whether Ma Weiwei showed off or Tongning avoided it, the sparks between the two were enough to support the reporters for a long time to come. Ma Weiwei's promise to take good care of superstar media was probably the most provocative thing she had ever said. Did this mean that she was declaring war on Tongning? But the thing that made everyone anxious was the fact that Tongning, the other main character of the incident, refused to respond. She did not respond to Ma Weiwei at all. Over the past few days, Tongning had taken Jones to many interesting places in Beijing. She truly treated Jones like family and took care of him. But Jones continued to pay close attention to the incident. A few days later, Jones decided it was time for him to return to the U.S. After all, this was his first stop after retirement, and he had a good understanding of Beijing's culture. So, he decided to leave with his wife. Tongning, I know that if I stay in Beijing, you will need to think of a way to keep us company. You won't be able to focus on dealing with the clone. Hearing this, Tongning shook her head. That matter can be dealt with at any time. But it's not every day that I get to go shopping with my master. Tomorrow, I will leave with your master's wife. Aren't you going to stay for another 2 days? Tongning asked. It's fine. My wife misses her grandson. Jones replied. Tomorrow, your wife and I will go to the airport on our own. You don't need to send us back. Otherwise, it will cause another huge scandal. Master, all good things must come to an end. Your teacher's wife and I have grown old, but you are still young and have limitless possibilities. I will be waiting for your film to be released in the U.S. Jones packed his luggage and placed it to one side. He then pointed at Tongning's sons and said, Your rascals look very special. As she was afraid that Jones would be harassed by fans, she arranged for the couple to stay at Hyatt Regency. When the husband and wife came in, they were extremely excited because they could see 3 cute little guys. Meanwhile, Jones was at the age where he could play with his grandson. He looked at the little rascals lovingly. His father and I are planning to take him for a test to see how he's different from a normal child. After the test, remember to tell me the results. Jones raised an eyebrow at Tongning. Don't you guys have a saying? The world is full of strange things. Tongning laughed. That's right, that's right. The next day, as expected, Jones insisted on leaving. Tongning couldn't dissuade the 2 elders, so she tried to drive them to the airport. But Jones refused. Right now, we're just 2 normal old people. You don't need to make us special. Since things had reached this point, what else could Tongning say? All she could do was arrange a car for the 2 elders and not go there herself. Of course, she had no idea that Jones had prepared an even bigger gift for her. Perhaps Jones did it on purpose, but as soon as he arrived at the airport, he did not hide his presence at all. As a result, he attracted a large group of fans. Of course, some Beijing locals who were fluent in English approached him and tried to strike up a conversation. Hi, Jones, I'm so excited to see you here. Jones was extremely approachable and agreed to all the requests of the passers-by. Afterwards, the nearby reporters all rushed over. As soon as they saw Jones, they immediately swarmed towards him. But Jones did not show any signs of impatience. I only have one request. As long as you're not as aggressive as you were the other day, I can give you a good interview. Of course not. Of course not. I know what you want to ask. Why didn't Tongning come to the airport to send us off? Jones asked on behalf of the reporters. I was the one who requested to take my wife back to China on my own. I've troubled her too much over the past few days. Jones, in your eyes, what kind of person is Tongning? One of the reporters asked. Stubborn and persistent. It's strange. I've read a lot of reports about you guys, but she's very different from the Tongning I know. On the surface, she acts tough, but she's actually a very kind person. She's cold on the outside, but warm on the inside. So, I don't understand why you guys are slandering her. Jones replied with a cute and playful tone. I really like your films, Jones. I'm looking forward to your new film. New film? I'm sorry, madam, but I've already retired, Jones replied as he made a regretful gesture. But if you still want to watch a good film, I think there's someone else that can satisfy you. Who? Jones, hurry and tell us. Jones held onto his wife's hand as he answered the reporter's questions, my disciple, Tongning. In Beijing, you call her disciple, right? Disciple? That's right, my disciple. Don't you guys have a saying in Beijing? Tongning is my only disciple. Although I'm no longer filming, she will continue to work hard. Oh God, the reporters were stunned. What kind of explosive news had they just heard? It turned out Jones was with Tongning in Beijing because she was his disciple, his only disciple. This was something Jones had personally admitted. She was the disciple of the father of sci-fi. How big a mess was Tongning trying to create? It was unbelievable. Chapter 1036. So, for the sake of a good film, don't bully her all the time. Promise me, okay? Perhaps it was because Jones's question was too gentle, but the reporters around him all nodded their heads stupidly. Jones revealed a loving smile, like a kind father that had successfully protected his daughter. From the conversation between Jones and the reporters, it was obvious that he and Tongning had a very close relationship. At least, Tongning was the only person that a world-class sci-fi master acknowledged as his disciple. This was way too domineering. Although she didn't come from a professional film school, she will definitely produce the best film with the utmost sincerity. Trust me. After speaking, Jones gave the reporters an okay gesture as he passed through security. This old man was extremely adorable. It wasn't until Jones's figure completely disappeared from the reporters' view that they began to sigh. I can't believe Tongning ended up becoming Jones's disciple. The public ridiculed her so much, yet she still insisted on filming a sci-fi film. Of course, she's been working with Xiao-san for a while now. Who would have thought that after so much has happened, she still hasn't given up? I'm impressed by her determination. To have a world-class master speak up for her, Tongning must be extremely lucky. That's why, with Jones's help, Tongning can easily make a comeback and create a big scene. Let's look at Ma Weiwei's side and see who's better. One's the real deal and the other's the fake. Do you really expect the fake to produce something good? The discussions of the reporters represented a lot of netizens. Especially after the video was uploaded online, it caused an uproar. Although this was already Tongning's normal behavior, according to the speed of her improvement, even if Ma Weiwei tried to scam her every day, she wouldn't be able to catch up, especially since Tongning was now a personal disciple of a master. Because of this relationship, the reporters treated Tongning a lot more gently. Of course, after a few confrontations with the reporters, Tongning realized from Jones's words that there was no way anyone could win. On top of that, after being slapped in the face by the media on the US website, both sides began to reconsider. So, Tongning decided that her time should be spent on researching her film and not being angry with the media. Now that she had the support of Jones, her net worth was naturally different. This made the onlookers feel inexplicably refreshed. After all, when they saw Tongning being bullied by Ma Weiwei, they felt like they were the ones being bullied. So, now that Tongning had turned the tables and slapped them in the face, they felt like they had personally slapped Ma Weiwei. It was extremely satisfying. Of course, as the person in question, Tongning had no idea that Jones would do something like this, even though she had already decided not to reveal this matter to the public. Jones gave you such a big present. Aren't you happy? You should know that the words coming out of Jones' mouth and yours are two completely different things. This was what Long Jie said to the serious-looking Tongning on her first day back at work. Of course, Tongning wasn't wrong. Although being Jones's only direct disciple is a very prestigious thing, it also means that people will have different expectations of you. In this way, I will be under even more pressure. That's true. Jones is, after all, the father of sci-fi. As his disciple, if you produce something too bad, you will definitely be scolded. But I believe in you. Long Jie was confident in Tongning. Look at you. For the sake of the Ant Queen, you moved your studio back and forth between Beijing and the US. I refuse to believe that you won't be recognized by the fans. The Ant Queen is starting to show results. I'm sure it will be released to the public very soon. Plus, since Jones has already left, it's time to settle the score with Superstar Media. But before that, Ting and I need to take Zichen for a test. Everyone can tell that the little rascal is different from others. Long Jie said as she looked at her son sitting on the sofa. After leaving work, Long Jie also had to deal with the difficulties of her family. Although Mother Lu had only visited once, and Tongning didn't take it to heart, she still felt uncomfortable whenever she thought about Mother Lu's expression. Lu Che said that he needed to wait for the right time. So, she hoped that the right time would come soon. Otherwise, she would hate her family and not want to return home in case Mother Lu came looking for her again. Meanwhile, the results of the test that Lu Che had arranged for her had yet to come out. Meanwhile, news of Tongning being Joan's student had already spread throughout Beijing. At the same time, the public acknowledged Tongning's achievements in the film industry. Although they previously ridiculed her for creating sci-fi films, now that the father of sci-fi, Jones, mentioned that he was her teacher, did it mean that Tongning had really put in a lot of hard work in this area? It seemed she really enjoyed challenges. In particular, she enjoyed face-slapping. But this wave of news made it impossible for Ma Weiwei to catch up even if she rode on a rocket. After all, Ma Weiwei had no choice when it came to film and television. Although she had put in a lot of effort to learn, not everyone had the same level of understanding and talent as Tongning. Because of this, the public's attitude towards Ma Weiwei and Tongning began to tilt towards one side. This meant that Ma Weiwei was being ridiculed by the public, while the benefits that she brought to the public decreased. And the treatment that the public received meant that her entire existence was worth less. As a result, Ma Weiwei was in low spirits. Her manager stood by her side and comforted, "Weiwei, don't worry. The most important thing right now is to grab onto the next hot topic. I'm just a parasite on Tongning. Don't think too much. Tomorrow, the agency will be taking you to an interview for an international skincare endorsement. Although Tongning has improved, you aren't too bad either," her manager comforted. "Get some rest and don't think too much." She challenged Tongning multiple times, and each challenge was more and more outrageous than the last. But Tongning didn't care at all. What could she do? Tongning was now Joan's disciple. She wasn't someone that a C-list artist like her could compare to. Because of this, Ma Weiwei gave Han Xiucha a phone call. "You're not in a good mood. Let's have a drink." "Is it because of Tongning?" Han Xiucha asked. "I've already heard about what happened. Tongning is slowly rising up the ranks, and you're about to be hit in the back. Don't be sarcastic." "You're not doing well either," Ma Weiwei humphed. "After all, you've always viewed Tongning as your enemy. Don't you feel bad that your enemy keeps changing?" Chapter 1037. It's hard, of course it's hard. But I'm not going to sit around and do nothing. Han Xiucha laughed at Ma Weiwei as he drew his comic. "You're such a pitiful person." Did Tongning want to make sci-fi film? He had been in the field of sci-fi for a long time. If Tongning could come up with something, what else couldn't he do? But the matter with Superstar Media wasn't over yet. The most disappointing thing was Superstar Media was something that Tongning single-handedly created, yet she threw it away just like that. It was obvious that she was a heartless person. It didn't matter how much the public praised her. As long as he knew how fake she was, that was enough. Ma Weiwei was indeed a pitiful person. Her fate was firmly controlled by Tongning, and she had no right to speak. Regardless of everything else, the most important thing right now was to secure the international endorsement deal. But Ma Weiwei had no idea how humiliating the interview the next day would be. The next morning, as soon as they returned to Beijing, Tongning promised Mo Zichen that she would take him to do a brain test. The little rascal looked smart, but he didn't know how to communicate with adults like a normal child. If his daily behavior was a result of some kind of disorder, it would be easier to get treatment in time. Because of this, Long Jie contacted a specialist hospital to keep Tongning and Boss's schedule a secret. However, the little rascal was rarely taken out on his own, yet he wasn't afraid of strangers at all. Mo Ting carried their son, while Tongning followed beside him. The couple dressed extremely inconspicuously as they took their son to the neurology department. As soon as the doctor saw the couple, he welcomed them with a smile and took Mo Zichen from their hands. "I've already heard from Miss Long about the young master's daily behavior. He is indeed different from other children his age, including when he's with his twin brother. Don't worry, Mr. and Mrs. Mo. During the examination, I will take good care of the young master. Don't worry. Mo Ting wrapped his arm around Tong Ning's shoulder and nodded his head. The couple then retreated to the waiting room with Long Jie. The entire examination took a little over an hour. Afterwards, the doctor carried Mo Zichen out and handed him to Mo Ting. Meanwhile, the little rascal fell asleep. Doctor, what are the results? You don't have to worry. The young master is very healthy. There are no problems that you're worried about. But he didn't cry or make a fuss, and he didn't speak either. That's not a problem at all. When he wants to express himself, he'll speak. You might have given birth to a genius. Therefore, in your daily life, you should try your best to cultivate some of his interests and hobbies. At that time, you will be able to discover exactly what makes him a genius. But you have to pay attention to a problem. Smart children tend to be loners. Tong Ning glanced at Mo Ting and rubbed her son's head. She then nodded at the doctor. We will be careful. Then, the couple brought the little fellow home. On the way home, Tong Ning realized Mo Ting was not the least bit worried. What if he's too smart and we can't handle him? That's impossible. As long as he's healthy, leave his future education to me, okay? Originally, Tong Ning took Mo Zichen to the hospital because she wanted to know if he was healthy or not. She didn't care about anything else. After all, no matter what happened to the little rascal, he was still her and Mo Ting's baby. This was something that no one could change. So, Tong Ning let out a sigh of relief. My request is simple. As long as he's happy and kind, whether he succeeds in the end will depend on him. Don't worry, okay? Mo Ting carried Mo Zichen in one arm and rubbed Tong Ning on the forehead with the other. However, even though the couple kept such a low profile, they were still spotted by passers-by. So, a photo of them was taken and uploaded online. Netizens expressed that, while Ma Weiwei and Tong Ning were locked in an intense battle, Mo Ting taking his wife and son out on the road was a great way to calm the tense atmosphere. Above all, from the photo, Mo Ting carried his son in a professional manner while Tong Ning leaned against his arm. The family of three looked very warm and harmonious. Daddy Ting is so handsome, the big boss of the entertainment industry dotes on his wife and son. He is a legend. Of course, there were also people that criticized Tong Ning for selling off her image as a mother. But, as soon as these comments appeared, they were immediately criticized by the majority of netizens. Tong Ning simply took her son to the hospital. Why do some people always sound so vicious? Children are prone to illness. Don't forget whose apprentice Tong Ning is. She doesn't need to sell off her image. Only a fan of Ma Weiwei's that would criticize something like this. Their son is so adorable. Haven't you guys noticed? At the time, Mo Zichen was sleeping on his father's shoulder. So, he looked adorable and likable. Netizens couldn't help but sigh. It was all because of his good genes. I really hope to see this adorable child star. Meanwhile, Tong Ning's side was filled with warmth. Because of Mo Zichen's appearance, many passers-by liked him. Meanwhile, Ma Weiwei was accompanied by her management agency and successfully met with the CEO of an international skincare brand. But, after a short discussion, the CEO scanned Ma Weiwei from head to toe with a complex expression, making it impossible to guess what he was planning. The CEO of Ma Weiwei's agency expressed his confusion. Did they put in so much effort, yet the CEO still wasn't sure? After all, the agency's PR department had spent a lot of resources. Mr. Zhou, I'm sure you're aware of Weiwei's current popularity in Beijing. Is there anything you're not satisfied with? The CEO, Mr. Zhou, lifted his head and looked at Ma Weiwei before smiling. To be honest, a lot of agencies have approached us this time. Although I know your agency has a strong desire to work with us, I'm sorry. But in comparison, our number one wish is to look for Tong Ning. Unfortunately, she has already rejected us. But even so, we would rather look for another female celebrity. Wouldn't we be destroying our own reputation if we were to look for someone who has undergone plastic surgery? The CEO replied straightforwardly. Plus, when it comes to popularity, your agency's artists are a far cry from Tongning's. So, how could our brand possibly look for an unfamiliar face? For us, money and benefits aren't a problem. The problem is we want a spokesperson that truly matches our style. Rank is very important. Do you know? Man. Meanwhile, your artist isn't good enough yet. Go home. Chapter 1038. You guys don't do things like this. Shouldn't you give us an explanation for accepting benefits from us? There were plenty of companies and artists that had given benefits to others, but none of them were like Ma Weiwei and her agency. How dare they bring such an unspoken rule to the public? You should look for the person that received benefits from you. Leah, send them out. Why don't you take a look at yourself first? As an imitation, you should have some self-awareness. Do you think you're the real deal? The real Tongning could even reject international brands, but they still wanted her to be their spokesperson. After all, in the entire Beijing, Tongning was the only person that had achieved results and was well known overseas. Plus, she was now the disciple of the father of Sci-Fi Jones. So, she was probably the only one that was suitable for an international skincare product. Ma Weiwei still wanted to fight for the opportunity, but Ma Weiwei stopped her. Let's go back. Go back? How are we going to explain this to boss? The artist director asked. Weiwei, you need to work harder. It's not easy for the agency to spend so much effort on you. Yet, you can't even secure a good endorsement deal. If this gets out, how are we going to continue working? Then don't work anymore. After speaking, Ma Weiwei stood up without even putting on her sunglasses as she rushed out the door and into the elevator. At this time, the staff in the elevator were excited to see Ma Weiwei. Tongning, are you Tongning? Can you give me an autograph? A female staff wearing black-framed glasses handed her notebook to Ma Weiwei. The male colleague beside her immediately reminded her, "You've got the wrong person. She's not Tongning. She's the imitation." The female employee hurriedly adjusted her glasses and looked at Ma Weiwei from top to bottom. Her face immediately turned red. I thought for an upper-class skincare company to invite someone like Tongning, keep your voice down. What's she doing here? Unfortunately, this female staff was Tongning's fan, so she obviously despised Ma Weiwei. So, now that she saw the real Ma Weiwei, she naturally couldn't help but mock. In this world, reincarnation is the way of the world. Those that climb up by stepping on others, I hope they'll one day fall to pieces. Ma Weiwei was squeezed into the small elevator. She clenched her fists tightly. If there weren't so many people around, she would have torn this bitch's mouth apart. However, there were so many eyes staring at her. If you truly have Tongning's best interests in mind, then don't put her in the same category as that type of person. There's no need to even hate her. Of course, this was only after Ma Weiwei stepped out of the elevator. However, it did not escape Ma Weiwei's ears. After Ma Weiwei heard this, she directly walked out of the building. She did not care about the traffic outside or how many pairs of eyes were watching her. Was she destined to live under Tongning's shadow for the rest of her life? Perhaps the artist-director told her to look for Ma Weiwei, so she had no choice but to give Han Xiucha a phone call. At this point, there was nothing she could do about Ma Weiwei. Although Han Xiucha didn't want to get involved in other people's business, especially at a sensitive time like this, he felt sympathetic towards Ma Weiwei. They were both people that Tongning had hurt. If he didn't step in to help, then no one else would. Little did he know, between the two of them, one of them had his pride hurt because of his desire for love, so he lied to himself and tried his best to defame Tongning. He wanted to create the illusion that Tongning wasn't good enough to make him give up. As for the other one, she was even worse. She used her face for plastic surgery to ride on her popularity, consume her fame, and even snatch her company. Not only did they not find fault with themselves, they even thought that the one at fault would always be the one who did not satisfy their desires. In the end, Han Xiucha found Ma Weiwei at the bar and took her to his home. No matter what I do, I will never be able to escape from Tongning's curse. Cheer up a little. Han Xiucha pulled out a towel and threw it at Ma Weiwei's head. As long as we have a scapegoat, we can just throw it at Tongning and everything will be over. But how many people are still willing to believe in me? Ma Weiwei buried her head in tears. I've already made myself look like her. What do you expect me to do? Han Xiucha, I'm really tired. Go to sleep. Tomorrow, I'll help you get revenge. What are you going to do? Don't worry about me. Han Xiucha pulled out his laptop and a thin blanket and threw it at Ma Weiwei. Afterwards, he immersed himself in his own world as he logged on his social media and began to curse. His way of expressing himself was simple and violent. Tongning, how far do you want to push Ma Weiwei? Are you going to give up after one more death? You have everything you need right now, so you can't be too ruthless. As soon as these words were posted, everyone, including Tongning, were dumbfounded. Tongning hadn't done anything. How did she become the ruthless person that Han Xiucha was referring to? This time, Tongning's fans couldn't hold back any longer as they directly attacked. Yesterday morning, Mai Ning took little Mo to the doctor. After returning home, she stayed at Hyatt Regency and hasn't stepped out since. Han Xiucha, aren't you afraid of being struck by lightning for throwing the blame around? Han Xiucha, you keep saying that Mai Ning is forcing Ma Weiwei. Please show us some evidence. By the way, didn't you say that you weren't close with Ma Weiwei? Just because Ma Weiwei got plastic surgery to look like Mai Ning, every time Ma Weiwei gets bullied, it's all Mai Ning's fault? I'm sorry, but Mai Ning doesn't have that much free time. God will punish a despicable person. Han Xiucha continued to create the image of a victim for Ma Weiwei because he wanted to stick to Tongning. He wanted to give her a reminder so that she would feel better, but at the same time, she would feel a little upset. Anyone with a discerning eye could tell that he was creating hype. After all, he had previously admitted that he gave superstar media to Ma Weiwei because he wanted to ride on Tongning's popularity. But his image of a victim was becoming deeper and deeper. When someone was bullied or unhappy, all he had to do was shout about it online, and the public would be in an uproar. As soon as Ma Weiwei woke up and saw Han Xiucha arguing with Tongning's fans, she immediately tried to stop him. Are you crazy? I'm trying to help you. Han Xiucha laughed. If you're in trouble, then Tongning shouldn't be in trouble either. But if she's in trouble, it won't do me any good. Who said it won't do you any good? Some things, the more you talk about it, the more it turns out to be true. Right now, you're just an imitation. There's no way you can change Tongning's image. On the other hand, in the eyes of others, you can't bully Tongning, but Tongning can bully you as she pleases. You need to continue being the victim. Only then will you feel better. After hearing Han Xiucha's words, Ma Weiwei couldn't help but laugh. You're already in this state, yet Tongning can still hold it in without making a sound. Her endurance isn't ordinary. Chapter 1039. If Ma Weiwei wasn't lying to herself, why didn't Tongning say a word? Didn't she know? For a fake like her, Tongning had no reason to respond. She simply didn't want to admit it. Han Xiucha thought he had seen through Tongning. Not only does she have amazing endurance, her methods are also extremely shameless. Just wait and see. She has a lot of tricks up her sleeves. But regardless of what she does, be careful. I can't help you every time. Ma Weiwei sneered. After running away for an entire night, it was time to face reality. Plus, just like Han Xiucha said, he had already helped her vent her anger. At least, disgusting Tongning a little would make her feel a lot better. This was how the world worked. Many people felt that seeing others happy was worse than seeing their own misfortune. As long as she saw others suffer, she would find a sense of balance in her heart. So, Han Xiucha continued to argue with Tongning's fans. Did you guys know that the woman you're so loyal to has a rotten heart? She's accomplished nothing, yet she dares to call herself an international superstar. You're the only one with a bigger face. Faced with this situation, Long Jie watched as Han Xiucha argued with his fans and handed her phone to Tongning. I wonder how far Han Xiucha will go. You don't need to care about it. I know, but this man and Ma Weiwei are as disgusting as flies. Yet, she once tried to trust this man. This made Long Jie feel even more humiliated and angry. Plus, superstar media was still in their hands. Doesn't Tongning want to make a sci-fi film? Just you wait. The rubbish she makes will either suck up to the Americans or become a children's film. What the fuck? As soon as Long Jie saw this, her temper flared up. Aren't you afraid that your tongue will rot? This morning, I received news that the trailer for The Ant Queen has been completed. Tongning did not respond to Long Jie's words. Instead, she shared this more meaningful news with her. I understand what you're trying to say. After preparing for so long, it's time to release a trailer and slap those jerks in the face. For the sake of the Ant Queen, the hardships that Tongning had gone through were not things that Long Jie could understand, especially since she was carrying Xiao Sun and Xia Hanmo's dreams on her back. She was already carrying a heavy burden. So, even if Han Xiuqia and Ma Weiwei were vicious, they couldn't stop Tongning from moving forward. This time, she was no longer a model, nor an actress, nor was she an international superstar. This time, she was simply a producer and producer. Afterwards, Tongning handed the first version of the film to Mo Ting. You are the first. Mo Ting looked at Tongning seriously. He knew how much anticipation she had for handing him the finished product and how complicated her feelings were. She needed the most honest answer and the most sincere encouragement. This was the first version of the film, so there were definitely many flaws in the editing and post-production. In fact, it might even need to be res hot. Regardless of everything, she wanted Mo Ting to give her an answer. Was this film good or not? Leave it here, Mo Ting said gently. It seemed he was trying to lower her anxiety. Take a deep breath. Don't give yourself too much pressure. Tongning held onto Mo Ting's hand and nodded. I trust you. If worse comes to worst, I'll just have to start all over again. It's okay. I won't. Trust me, okay? Tongning didn't know when Mo Ting was going to watch the film, but she was looking forward to his reaction. But even before she went to bed, Mo Ting did not give her any hints. Could it be that he had been dealing with work the entire time he was locked up in the study room? Or could it be that after watching the film, he felt it was bad and didn't know how to explain it to her? Tongning originally wanted to ask him, but Yin Er had a fever. After coaxing her daughter to sleep, Tongning also fell asleep. At this time, Mo Ting finished taking care of his wife and daughter and headed into the study room to watch the film. He was the main character in this film, so it was a strange feeling. So, he had to get rid of all distractions and place himself in the audience's shoes in order to give an objective review. The entire structure of The Ant Queen had been adjusted. It had changed from a romantic sci-fi film to an adventure between a father and daughter. At the beginning of the film, Coco was kidnapped and the kidnappers ran away with her, but along the way, they bumped into a pedestrian. However, the pedestrian was extremely strange. It had a transparent body. The kidnappers cursed a few times before they ignored the person they bumped into and ran away. But they had no idea that after they left, the person they bumped into actually shed a layer of human skin. It was a sign of termites eating away at the flesh of a living person. As for the person that the kidnappers saw, his entire body had been hollowed out by the termites. All that was left was his head. Seeing this, Mo Ting paused for a moment, because the first scene had already given him goosebumps. Tongning's post-production team actually managed to achieve such a high level of special effects. They made the termites' bodies so transparent that it was disgusting. In the past, a lot of American sci-fi films were set in the future, not on another planet or a few hundred years in the future. But Tongning and Xiao Sun directly placed something like this in the real world. It was similar to the nightmarish python films that they had seen when they were young. It was so realistic that it felt like they were about to find a python under their bed. It made them break out in a cold sweat. Afterwards, the kidnappers arrived on a deserted island. This mysterious island was based on a mysterious tribe from the real world. But the grandeur of the island did not lose out to the atmosphere created by a Hollywood blockbuster. Soon, 2 hours had passed. Mo Ting didn't know why, but after finishing the movie in one go, he turned off his computer. He needed to calm down, although it wasn't hard to see the difference between Xiao Sun and Nzaheo's filming techniques. It wasn't that important to him. Mo Ting tried to calm himself down, but he couldn't hide the trembling in his hands. From his point of view, he had never expected Tongning to create something like this. How could he not be excited by this? Soon, Ting returned to his bedroom. As he looked at the sleeping Tongning, he felt that everything she had suffered for so long was all worth it. All the pain she had endured over the past year was all worth it. The next day, Tongning woke up and looked at Ting. He was already dressed and standing by her bed. Your post-production team did not let you down. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.